Welcome to Inside the Birds Pregame live here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook on Delaware Ave, where Philly loves a winner. I'm Geoff Mosher from Inside the Birds alongside Adam Caplan. Joining us tonight, not one, but two former Eagles. Of course, we've got former Eagle wide receiver Jason Avant, and we've got Eagles Hall of Fame left tackle Trey Thomas. What's up, Trey? How you doing?
Fantastic, man. Doing well.
Welcome back.
Hey, watched the Dallas Cowboys get smacked yesterday.
Yeah.
Yellowstone had a 2-hour premiere.
Oh, I missed that.
It was amazing.
Was it good?
Oh, it was awesome.
It's not going to be better than tonight's game.
No. I'm glad it all happened on Sunday.
Yes, it did. Speaking of Sunday, it's been a long time since the Eagles seemingly played on a Sunday. It's been 11 days. Ironically, the Eagles were one of the first teams to play in Week 9 on Thursday night. They're one of the last teams to play Week 10 here as they have Monday Night Football. Last time they took the field, they beat the Texans on Thursday night. It was 27-16. They improved to 8-0 for the first time in franchise history. That sounds good, doesn't it? 8-0, first time in franchise. Yeah, you guys did really well, but you never 8-0. That was pretty good.
They're doing great.
Man,
they're doing great.
You guys are going to kill me for saying that.
No, I'm not.
Right.
I'm happy for them.
You have to be a trailblazer. It's okay.
That's right. That's right. Well, this Washington Commanders team they're playing is a little bit different than the Eagles team that beat them 24-8 in Week 3. But the Commanders come in here at 4-5, trying to even their record, trying to get their season back on track. There was also a big difference in that first Eagles-Commanders game. I think we all know what it is. We'll get to that a little bit later. There's plenty of time to come on down here to Rivers Casino and Sportsbook. You got people placing bets. You got the leather chairs. You got the big, gigantic, I can't even call them big screen TVs. They're gigantic movie theater style TVs, HD TVs you get to watch the games on. It is quite a viewing event here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook. Take advantage, of course, of the drink specials here and food specials at Jack's Bar and Grill. You see our man Trey Thomas already has a little white wine for him.
Oh, yeah, man.
He's taking advantage.
Nice.
And, of course, for those watching at home, just leave a comment in the YouTube chat box. We'll try to get to it. You can leave your score prediction, and we'll try to announce that as well. All right, this is a big NFC East game. Like I said, it's been a long layoff for the Eagles, but they are undefeated. And before we get into the X's and O's, Trey, we like to start off with a big picture outlook. And I'm glad you're here because ever since Week 2, Trey Thomas on our postgame show has been beating the undefeated drum. I mean, he's got a Miami Dolphins 72 jersey commemorating the last undefeated team in the NFL in the background. So, Trey, I'm going to start off with this. I mean, we're just tonight halfway through the year. It's felt like an eternity.
Yeah.
How realistic do you think this undefeated campaign is?
I think it's very realistic.
Really?
I mean, just as you continue to listen to what's going on within the locker room, when you hear the players talk about it, one of the questions was asked to A.J. Brown about, hey, how is it being perfect? And A.J. Brown was just saying, like, oh, look, we're not focusing on that. We want to make sure that we can hold each other accountable and just keep making the corrections that's needed to continue on this road. And I think that within the locker room, you have a group that can hold each other accountable within that locker room because that's what's needed. You can't get complacent. You need everybody to always come out there and play their A game. And I think that they have the guys in that locker room to accomplish that.
Is it time yet? Like, it's just 8-0, maybe tonight 9-0. When will the burden of being undefeated and the questions and when do the 72 Dolphins start showing up on the sideline with their champagne just waiting for the Eagles to lose?
Well, it's already started. Everybody's already talking about it. Everybody, hey, man, what's your chances of going undefeated? Before, back when I said it, everybody, it was all a joke. Now everybody's like, everybody's on that. Hey, man, you guys could possibly go undefeated train now.
You were first.
And you've got that. You've got it in your office there back at home.
Yeah.
Got that. Is that a jersey? Is that a jersey?
Yes, it's a 72 Dolphins jersey. Yeah, with all the guys signed it.
Very cool.
What do you think, Jay? I mean, do you agree with Trey that this thing is very, very? I mean, we've talked about the soft schedule, but in general, is it realistic to you?
It's realistic. The thing is, you're going to get toward the end of that season where you get into week 16, 17, 18, and then you're playing for what at that point when you already have home field advantage locked up, and now you start to get into the X's and O's of being a coach, all right? Do I want to go and defeat the 72 Dolphins record or the Patriots regular season record, or do I want to go in the playoffs healthy? And those are the things that you got to start thinking about later on in the season. But the thing that's good for this team in going undefeated is that most people still don't believe in this team. Every time you say the Eagles' name, it's always they have a weak schedule. It's never that they're a good team. It's always the Bills. It's always the Chiefs. It's always another team. The Vikings are coming on, even though the Eagles beat them. So there's always something, which I know in their locker room pisses off a lot of competitive people.
Right.
So with that being said, this team definitely has a shot because they're still viewed as an underdog, good team, one of the Super Bowl contenders, you know, even though they're the last undefeated team. So I think that's going to play well for the team.
You bring up a pretty interesting point, and I wonder, I want your opinion from your own, from a player standpoint, and what you think that these players and this team is thinking. If those games don't matter in the standings at the end, but it's still whatever and oh, as a player, do you embrace trying to go for history, or do you think the players will just embrace trying to stay healthy?
Based on the NFC and where it stands, I think that the last two games could be obsolete, right? So now it's not just one game that you go out and prepare for. You're talking about two games, right? So if the Eagles continue on this path, say they beat they beat the teams they need to beat. They beat the Cowboys. They beat the Giants. Now you're looking at it. It's like, yo, we have the tiebreaker versus the Vikings. The Vikings need to win, and then you have these other teams in our division that are 3 games back. Now it doesn't make that much sense. So I'm going to go with saying let's be ready for the playoffs more than the undefeated season. That's just me. If you get into a situation where there's 2 or 3 games that you don't need, prepare for the playoffs. Now one is a totally different subject.
When you say prepare for it, does that mean start playing your backups if you've got the first seed clinched?
Well, yeah, if you can get guys healthy. You can get some guys healthy. Now, this is a long way away, and I hate going this far in the future. But this is a long way away. But if you got guys that are banged up, get those guys healthy. That's what it means to me.
But my only concern when it comes to that, when you take that much time off, it throws off the timing of a team.
Yeah, that's
you know
true.
What I'm saying? So
that's true. The Ravens a couple years ago.
The Ravens a couple years ago. Clinching early? Did you guys go through that?
Earlier in your.
But I always played every game.
I see.
You know what I'm saying? So
that was he had Coach Juan.
Yeah, we had Juan, and Big Red was like, look, we're gonna get out there, even if you have to play that first half of the game and then you start pulling guys. I can see that, but you know, I've always had to play.
Sure.
So that's the only thing that I know. You know, but I can see that point where you're saying, okay, hey, we might need to rest these guys as we continue to move forward and go into the playoffs healthy. Yeah. But again, when you give that much time off, sometimes that throws off the timing of what's been working.
Yeah. Okay. And that's only in a scenario that the Eagles don't need the last 2 or 3 games. And like I said, if they are in a situation where they're going into the last week and they have to, you know, that game doesn't mean anything, you go out and play that first half and hopefully you get a big enough lead and your backups can bring it home.
You know what they say, we will cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah.
That's right.
Adam, I'm going to ask you this. The Eagles won 24-8 the last time these teams met. The Washington Commanders have won 3 of their last 4, though. Do you see them now, tonight, as a bigger threat to the Eagles than they were 7 weeks ago?
In a way, based on what they've done defensively, they're going with this matchup zone.
Right.
Ron Rivera's been very out in front. Look, the tape's out there, so it's like, why lie? And they play with much more discipline because they had earlier this season given some big plays. They're not as much now. They really should have won that game against Minnesota. In another game, Minnesota comes back. It looks like they're done, and they win. They come back. So, yeah, I would say they're playing with better defense. We'll get into some of the matchup principles and what they've done on defense. But there are some similarities to what the Eagles are doing on defense. Definitely. It's kind of interesting. That a lot of teams now are going with this mirror match coverage.
Right, right. Well, you know, if you can't beat them, join them, right? We'll talk about what the Washington is doing. They are actually schematically different. There's going to be injuries that threaten both teams for this game. We'll start with the Philadelphia Eagles, who just within the last hour, they already knew the news wasn't great, but it sort of got worse. And that's on defense, slot cornerback Avante Maddox, who did not practice all week and was not scheduled to play, is now on injured reserve. So this is the first of 4 games that he will have to miss by being on injured reserve. Now it looks like Josiah Scott We'll see what the inactives come out, but right now the hope is that he's going to be able to play.
Yeah.
But he's also been banged up with the ankle injury, so you're asking a backup who's also coming off an injury himself to go in there and play the slot.
Yeah, they think he'll be ready to go tonight. The question is, will he be able to go for a full game? Because, look, the Eagles play their starting corners almost every snap, and
Right.
a slot corner is considered a starting corner in the National Football League.
It is.
That's why these guys get
11 is the
paid.
most.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
Mario Goodrich, who is out of Clemson, is an undrafted free agent. He's called up. He's elevated for the game. And we'll get into the matchups later. So we knew he was going to be out, but now Maddox is out for at least a minimum of week 13. Boy, we had heard it was a multi-week injury, but 4 weeks? Wow, that's
Yeah.
a significant strain.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's what, you know, to credit, you reported on the pod a couple weeks ago that this was no easy hamstring. This
no,
was
but 4 weeks?
Yeah,
wow,
no, that
that is
seems a little
to
weird.
know, and they knew it.
That's like a grade. That's
Grade,
almost,
at least a grade 2, right?
Yeah.
If you
that's
had
some
a,
Keenan Allen stuff going on right there.
well, that's
Yeah,
two
that's
bugs.
almost that's to the point where it's only one more before it's off the bone, you know. So it's
If you
pretty
had a
significant.
grade 2 or grade 3,
I've
that's
had a
it.
grade 2, and it took me 2.5. So I gained back the third game.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're going to be questionable, and you guys that you have a lead, and I think Avante Maddox's position is very, very important. I just think that they have the depth when it comes to they can play more base defense and bring Garner Johnson down, and well, there's a lot of ways that they can play this.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways they can play.
We'll get into that,
Yeah.
what they can do. Their only other player who's out is Josh Jobe, the reserve cornerback. He's been, I believe it was a hamstring injury for him as well. Same thing with Maddox with the hammy. So as Adam mentioned, they brought up Mario Goodrich, which will be a special teams move, if anything at all.
You would hope that's it.
Yeah, you would hope that
Yeah.
that's it. But they are a little thin now at the cornerback position. That is really, they have no injuries on offense, so that's a good thing for the Eagles. You go around to Washington, they have injuries. Now, there's obviously no Carson Wentz. He continues to be on IR, so that's why Taylor Heineke is starting tonight. Carson has a broken finger. Also, their third down running back, J.D. McKissick, is out with a neck injury, so he will not be available. And there's some question about center. Now, they're expecting Tyler Larson. I think they're hoping he will play, but he is listed as questionable. And same thing with their left guard, Andrew Norwell, who's nursing a groin injury. We'll have to see if those guys play.
Yeah, so Larson, he's their backup center. Chase Roullier is out for the season.
Right.
So he came over from Carolina, so he knows Scott Turner and Ron Rivera. And Andrew Norwell is the right guard, as you said. He was added late. He was actually added to the injury report on Saturday because he didn't work on Saturday. They have no depth in the interior, so it would probably be Sadiq Charles who could play tackle or guard.
Right.
But they're struggling on the offensive line. This, to me, is the matchup. The Eagles' D-line, which feasted, boy, they housed Wentz, and Wentz is a part of that problem because he held on the ball too long in the Week 3 game. But this is such a great matchup. The Eagles' D-line versus the Washington O-line, which has struggled all season.
This is also a recurring theme. It seems like going back to last year, I mean, that was COVID-related, but also injury-related. In both games, Washington has had a banged-up offensive line and been on backups. That's not what you want to be when you're going up against this Eagles front seven. Defensively, Chase Young, some people thought he might make his debut tonight, coming back from that knee injury that he suffered last year.
No go.
No, sir. He will not play tonight, so he'll try to return next week. For Washington, Young obviously had torn his ACL. Also, 2 linebackers out for Washington tonight. It'll be Cole Holcomb and David Mayo, both out. So that forces them to be a little bit underhanded in their front seven.
Yep, John Bostic, the ageless, he's been in the league forever. He's bounced around. He's not a great athlete. He's just a smart leader type. We'll see if the Eagles can take advantage of that. But I'll say this, with all their issues Washington's had on defense in terms of injuries, they're still a good run defense.
Really
the Eagles
good.
did not run well in the first game against them.
They did not. All right. Reminder, the Eagles did they signed Andre Chachere from the practice squad earlier this year. Earlier in the week. So he is available to play. He has played on defense. He is a hybrid nickel, corner, safety, and a good special teamer, which has been an area that the Eagles could use some upgrades. So we'll see if that makes any difference. And then they did sign the former Bengal, former Buck tackle guard Fred Johnson to their practice squad. Anything on Fred Johnson? I know you had some stuff.
Yeah, I just happened to see him at training camp. He's a big dude, 6'6", 6'7".
He is big.
More of a left tackle than guard. The Eagles because he's got experience of actually starting, they like it. The guy, I think he might have gotten a Super Bowl ring with Tampa 2 years ago. So here's a guy they know, same conference and all that. And then Sasha is a guy that could play safety, could play corner, special teams. And as he said, by the way, seeing Rudy Ford had an interception yesterday for the Packers. One of the fastest special teams
Turn on
players.
the Jets, too. He was
he can run.
down there.
He's one of the fastest special teams players. What happened with, I think it was the Jaguars overpaid him.
Yeah.
And he bounced around to the Texans as well, I think. But, yeah, they didn't want to pay him. And, okay, I get it. But you know what? They really could use someone, a gunner like that who could run.
Yeah, definitely. How dare you call someone overpaid knowing what we pay you? No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, let's get into the X's and O's. Guys, I wanted to go back to the undefeated element because I did some research on teams that have gone this far, being 8-0, and what the final outcome has been more recently. And some of the stats are really staggering. First of all, the last team to start 8-0 and win the Super Bowl, you have to go all the way back to 2006. That's 16 years ago. That was the Indianapolis Colts. All right, there have been 11 teams since that team to start off 8-0. Not one single one has won the Super Bowl. So I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but I just thought that was pretty fascinating.
With that
there.
negative energy, man.
Is that bad? That negative
that's terrible energy.
All right. My fault.
Let's skip over that note. All right.
You know what's even worse? Only 5 of those 11 teams have actually made the Super Bowl. All right, and 4 of them lost in the wild card or divisional round. So nothing's given when you're 8-0.
And also, it's the rest versus no rest. Remember, Tony Dungy, the then head coach of the Colts, will take a lot of grief for resting his players. Joe Banner said that there was no connection between resting and not resting your players. There's no data to say, okay, if you rest your players, you'll be stale. If you don't rest them, you won't be stale. They went back, because as you know, under Andy Reid, they had a lot of success over a series of years of getting that first round bye when they had 2. Remember, they had 2 teams that would get the bye. So there's really no great way to do it, but you have that data would suggest that more often than not, it's so hard to sustain that great dominant place. At some point, I know people hate it, the law of averages catches up to you, but there's reasons for that.
I think people forget the Steelers 2 years ago were 11-0.
Really?
Everything was going great, and then they lost in the wild card round. And then in 2019, the 49ers and Patriots both started 8-0. 49ers went to the Super Bowl. Patriots lost in the wild card round. So we're talking about 2 of 3 teams to start 8-0 in the last 3 years, not even get out of the wild card round. And I wonder if there's something about peaking early or just not, like we said, 8-0 right now is not even halfway. Not until after tonight will they be halfway.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. So one thing I'll say with that is that our team, the Eagles team, haven't played a complete game.
Exactly.
There are so many areas that they can grow and develop in this year. We can name a bunch. Run defense, tackling better when it comes to safety play.
Sure.
Being able to consistently get somebody else involved besides, 1 or 2 guys, A.J. Brown. It's always going to be a star receiver rather than them all feasting, right? So there's so many other things that our team can do well at, and I don't think we played our best game. So I think that they're going to talk about those types of things.
Absolutely. I don't think we've peaked yet. I know, we're 8-0, but we have not played a complete game. We've done enough. We've played really well and we've gotten the wins, but we haven't just gone out. I mean, you go back to that Texas game. I mean, that for a little bit you were like,
first half. They didn't look good. They were flat.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, guys. Over the years when your team was really, really good, because we asked John D. Flippo this when he was on our show a month ago about when did he know they were really going to be good in 2017? It was actually the Denver game. I know people point to the Carolina game, but he said their dominance when they dialed it up and when they went against Aqib Talib and they just said we're going after him, and they seemed like Denver couldn't stop them. Was there a time over your career when you were great that you remember, was there a certain game or a certain week you go, okay, I think we're really good?
I really don't remember. It was just so.
Or was there something so good about your offense that year you go, you know what? This might be the best offense we've had.
I think when we added T.O. into the mix, you just saw, a totally different dynamic with our offensive core.
Yeah,
that would do it.
You guys came out like a house of fire that year.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, no, you're good. I wasn't here with him.
That's right.
So I would say it all depends, but usually later in the season, you just want to be hot going into the playoffs, right? So I remember in 2008 when we went to the NFC Championship, what worked for us is that we began to run the ball out of bunch, out of this squeeze formation. Like it was basically a 2-by-2 spread, but it was in a squeeze. And we were able to cut the backside defensive end off with a receiver, and it boded well for us and took us to the NFC Championship. And that was the main reason we got there, is because we implemented that play. And then we didn't have to block. We started the second game versus the Giants because they just came off a Super Bowl. We needed something to stop their pass rush, and that was one of the things that would do it when it came to the run game. And also we had play action off of it, which was confusing. So yeah, that scheme helped us, propelled us, but hey, later in the season you wanted to be well. Later in the season you want to do well.
Yeah, I remember none of that.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because you guys represent two different eras of Andy Reid football, right? You represent like the Eagles are the favorite they were favored when you played, but for you, Trey, you guys would start off well, you were expected to be in the NFC Championship game, you usually started off well or overcame a quick slow start. Jay's teams were always climbing uphill after a rough September and October. You had all the injuries to the quarterbacks that you had to deal with, so two different ways to view it. You, my friend, are a segue master because you brought up this team is not yet peaked, they've got things to do. Next part of the script, we're going to talk about this Eagles run defense, which was not very good against the Houston Texans last Thursday night. They rushed for 168 yards against the Eagles. 168. That's a lot of rushing yards.
Pierce is pretty good.
He's pretty good, but that's a lot of rushing yards. 5.3 yards per carry. Pierce, 139 yards on 27 carries. That's more than 5 yards per run. So, Adam, I want to go back to something you said and then have these guys comment. Okay. You said, a source who watches tape, personnel source, said it looks like the Eagles are playing two different styles of football up front at times. Can you kind of elaborate on what that meant?
And it's going to play into tonight, which we'll finish that off with something else I got driving up here. So this one person said, look, he goes, Philly, I watch them a lot. I've watched their tape. He said, look, they got guys who are trying to get vertical, Cox and Hargrave, sometimes Sweat, sometimes BG, whoever it is. And the guys who funnel the run, they play the 4-eye, like they play it correctly, but it's the convergence of two philosophies, and it's very clear. Some guys are just, they're not there. They're not at the right gap. They're not where they're supposed to be. And this has been an ongoing problem. That this is what the tape shows, and it's very clear for anyone I guess who's playing. I can't look at it and know this, but this guy knows exactly what he's talking about. He goes, look, this is an ongoing problem here because I don't know if Gannon's trying to help these guys because they want to get vertical, but this Fangio type defense, you funnel the run inside. They're not always doing that, and they're getting out of place. And as you said, Jason, the tackling sometimes is atrocious.
Well,
they don't wrap.
I'll let Trey, O-line, D-line, I'll let him talk about
what is that about for this team? Because it's a year and a half now into this scheme.
Yeah, when it comes to defense, it's all about everybody just playing your gaps. You can't get out there and get undisciplined because then that's when you get picked apart. And when the defense is at their best, everybody just fills their gaps. You take if the defensive line has B gap, linebacker has C gap, whatever that is, whatever your assignments is, that's when they're at their best. But if you start deviating from that or you're trying to do a little too much, that's when you get picked apart. And I mean, some of those runs that you go back and you look at the Texans, I mean, some of these cutbacks that would look like, all right, it may have been outside zone and then he just cuts backs and then now he's at the backside C gap. You got us. There were a couple times where you guys just weren't where they were supposed to be. But then when you look at some of the other games where you were able to hold down the run, it was because guys played sound defense. I felt like our linebacker play took a little step back against the Texans.
Is that because the linemen were letting offensive linemen get up in their faces?
Just being out of position. Not filling the gaps where you were supposed to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I'll say with this is that there's a different brand of football for the front and there's a different brand of football for the back end. And those two groups are not in unison. They're just not. Like, even though there's guys that are out of position, you see max effort from the guys that are in the front seven.
Right.
Talking about the D-line and also the linebackers. When it comes to the secondary defenders, there's going to be times where they get you, where they get a double team, they get movement. Offensive linemen get paid too. But that gain should be 7 or 8 yards. It shouldn't be 24, 30 yards. It shouldn't be. Right. And the reason that there is that much gain is because you have a reluctance of guys that want to tackle. And that's just the truth. I don't know how to say it any more blunt than that. The safeties and corners.
Is it
There's
the chicken
guys
wing you're talking about? The chicken wing tackle?
It's a bunch of things. Like you see guys that want to get up there and make a play.
Right.
There was a play that Garner Johnson had. Literally, the ball would have been stopped at the line of scrimmage. He looked at it. He was right there in the gap. He turned it down.
Right.
And that happened multiple times. It happened with Darius Slay once. Happened with Marcus Epps once. And you have to be able to call those dudes out. That's one of those things where you get the whole defense up. The defensive coordinator say, man, we don't play football like this. Look at this guy. He's got double team, but he's running the ball, but this guy isn't. And this this game versus the Texans, it was like that multiple times. And on television, I pointed it out a few times. But there's definitely plays where you question a guy's being sold out to the run.
All right,
and that's a shame.
Let me ask on this Gardner Johnson thing, and I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about this for a couple weeks now.
Doesn't tackle well.
I get it, and he's not playing the position he normally plays, but was he not a nickel corner in New Orleans, which normally you have run gap responsibilities, run fits, and that's a good defense when he was on it. So did he not tackle well? I have a hard time thinking that.
Yeah, it's a different thing when you're at safety and you're responsible for more area, right? Okay. So from nickel, you have like certain limitations, and most of the time when you're in nickel, it's going to be a pass. So the opportunities for you to get the run is usually less.
Right.
When you're at safety and you have to come down in the box and you're responsible for area, and when the play hits, you're responsible to field. And just because there's a guy that maybe like halfway in there, you got to be able to throw your nose in there and go and sell out for a play. Just not happening at a consistent rate. Great. I love that the secondary is #1 with PBUs. I agree that they're #1 in interceptions and playing really well, league leading in yards per game, all those things. But you got to be able to throw your nose in there. There's some good running football teams that are coming down the pike, and if we don't correct it, it'll be bad for us.
And one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that every run play is designed to get the running back to the safety. That's the only person that we can't take care of. Every run play is designed to take care of that front 4 or 5 and get to the second level, and then we can't block the safety. So that's the guy that,
he's free. And if that guy wants to tackle, if he wants to be down there, guys are going to be on the ground. And I'm not saying this is a different era of football, but back in yesteryear, and I don't want to sound like the old man, but you had the Rodney Harrisons and the Trey Palomalus and the Brian Dawkins and the Sean Taylors and the Lawyer Maloyers, guys that would come down, and it was your responsibility as a receiver to try to get them off the running back, or they would fumble. Bob Sanders, those guys that wanted to make plays. We don't have guys that want to make plays like that. Just be honest.
Okay. And that's where your 8 yards, as you were saying, because if you're in the box and playing the run well, it's not going to get past 8 yards.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now, one thing you're going to see, you could see tonight. So another person said to me on my way in, one of the things Washington's doing to alleviate their issues running the ball on base downs first and second, they're trying trick plays. So Armani Rogers, who was a quarterback at Ohio U, he had a 24-yard end around. Minnesota had no idea what to do.
It was on 4th down, wasn't it? It was a 4th and 1.
I don't know what it was.
It was a 4th and 1, I think.
They had no idea.
It made me mad.
Because they're trying everything. They're trying everything to run the ball. They're trying gadgets. Curtis Samuel, this kid Rogers, he ran a 4.59 40 as a former quarterback. He's converted. He made the roster because he had a great training camp. They're doing everything. When you know you're overmatched, teams will come into this place, into the link, and they're going to try something tonight. Whether it's Samuel in an end around, gadget play, whatever it takes. And with Maddox out of the lineup tonight, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with Jahan Dotson back, which you should have mentioned. He's my fault. He's back from the hamstring injury.
Correct.
He had 4 touchdowns in 3 games.
He did. That'll be a big matchup that we'll discuss. So none of us are usually like, oh, fire the coach. We're not those type of people. However, when I hear about gap integrity, and I know that it's a year and a half of this defense, and listen, the reality is the Eagles have had about 7 different defensive line coaches in the last 8 or 10 years, including they won the Super Bowl, and I think they changed defensive line coaches. I do wonder, do they got too many veterans who just want to do it their way, and a guy like Tracy Rocker is not going to be able to get through to him, or is Tracy Rocker just not getting through to him? Them.
Remember, we're going for a 9-0 tonight.
Yeah,
it's a full season. I know, we like to say, hey, this defense, this is the weakness that has to be fixed. they're still working through this. There's still a long season. These guys that are veterans can correct it once they begin to see that this is an area that could be a problem area going, toward our championship goal and our mindsets. I think that they'll buy into that. And also, when you get Jordan Davis back, I know I wasn't a big fan as far as saying Jordan Davis is the reason, but looking at that game, versus the Texans, that was a big deal that Jordan Davis was out.
Big body. They don't have anyone like him. That's true.
Yeah. So I think that they're going to get better. And I don't necessarily know if firing people or talking about that is necessary. But I will say is that they have veteran guys that are used to a certain way. They did it, and they've gotten a lot of production when it comes to sacks this year, doing it that way. Man. You know what I mean?
They get vertical.
So playing the statistics,
so
they're like, yo.
My next question is more like, how do you just say we're 8-0? It's all right if we give up yards on the ground because we make up for it in other areas, or do you think that they are seriously looking at this saying we absolutely need to improve or someone's going to pick us off?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because, all right, you go up against the Texans and what you give up, how many yards did they give up?
168.
You still come out of there winning
yards.
by how many points?
A lot.
Yeah, they won.
Yeah.
Oh,
all right,
how
cool.
many points?
We're
16, right.
Right. We gave that up. All right, cool. We come out here with a win. Now, you cannot do that against the Dallas. You can't do that against some of these other teams. But, Texas, that was probably, one of the best 6-1 teams I've ever seen.
They play hard.
They play hard. You come out of there, But,
go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's it. You cut me off, so
my
lost my thought.
bad. So there's a bunch of teams that are starting to rely on the run in our division. You've seen the Cowboys starting to pick up the run a lot more. The Giants doing. The Packers ran the ball 60% of the time last night. Right? So when you start to consider that teams that we play, the Titans run the ball a bunch, there's teams that we're playing that are starting to run the ball more. So we have to address it.
Do you think now, guys, that because of the zone defense and how teams are saying we're not giving up the deep ball, is that why you think? Because there's some people think that that's why teams are running more because they're just not. The pass numbers are down. Why do you think teams are running the ball so much?
I think that it's just been a passing league for so long, and people have been used to nickel personnel and trying to stop the big play. Is that we've forgotten how to tackle as a league. This is some bad football that we're watching. Let's not get it confused. The Eagles are doing great, and I respect the Eagles, but overall, the brand of football is down when it comes to just execution.
Yeah, because like you said, everybody plays nickel. Everybody plays a nickel front. Even when we play 5 down, it's still a nickel front.
Right.
It's 4 down, 1-2 linebackers. So if you bring a tight end into the equation, oh man, I take my 5 against your 6 all day, because one of the defensive ends or somebody on the backside is going to be the read, and then now you have those zone reads that you pop open. So it's made the game a lot easier because of the pass game. Everybody plays nickel. It's easier to run against.
Yeah. Another reason for probably the increase in running this year is that there's just not very good quarterback play in the NFL right now. There's 4 good quarterbacks.
Yeah. When you start to consider that Tua is probably in your top 3 quarterbacks in the National Football League. Really.
But no, listen, I've been thinking about how we're kind of steam engineing our way to maybe a Tua Jalen Hurts Super Bowl, and how cool that might be.
I should have picked him. Tua a couple weeks ago was like 4,000 or something like that to 1. So
you should see Tua's passer rating in the last 3 games on 3rd down. It's been almost perfect for 3 straight games on 3rd down.
By the way, they're both in the running, serious running for MVP. Tua, all of a sudden, because he's healthy and he's putting up massive numbers.
Yeah,
that would be something.
Those 2 dudes that he has playing with him, though, it's too. When you have 2 guys that can beat you that way with speed, it's just so hard to play certain defenses. So
definitely
he's playing with a lot.
All right, you are also a segue master. You were talking about teams in the division running the ball more. Well, you don't have to look any further than tonight's opponent, the Washington Commanders. The last time we saw them, they were not running the ball much. They were not running the ball well. This time around, they are running the ball more often. Now, we can talk about how effective they are as a running team. The numbers are a little bit skewed, but the bottom line is the Commanders are, it's almost like commandos. Like
that's what I call them.
They are running the ball a lot more.
Some call them chimeras, but that's not right.
There you go. I wanted to ask you, Adam, how significant for them and what they're doing with Taylor Heinicke now is their attempt to be more of a running team?
The essence of the Scott Turner / Norv Turner offense starts with a run.
Right.
They're trying their hardest. They don't have that explosive changeup back, McKissick's more of a third down back. But that's why I mentioned Armani Rogers was that undrafted free agent, and Curtis Samuel. They have to try something. And the game against Minnesota, the numbers weren't great, but they're so committed to doing it.
They are.
And that's helping Heineke, because you can't ask him to throw the ball a lot. He puts it up, and sometimes it's for his guy, or sometimes his guy's going to get knocked out. Because he puts those hospital balls up, man, that he takes
The
one
one
step
that was
back.
a touchdown last week.
The one that shouldn't have been because the official
Yeah, the
bumped
official.
the
That was a
Smith out of
terrible
the way.
throw.
Yeah.
He puts it up there. You don't know where the ball's going. He's a high-risk guy, though. I'll tell you what, though. He's got a lot of moxie. He's a pretty good athlete. And watch them run a quarterback draw against this defense. Because when those guys get upfield and don't play the run, that's when the middle is left open.
Well, to Adam's point on their devotion to run, first 5 games, 19 rushes per game, average
That's
of
it?
97. That's it. 19. I mean,
That's
you would think. Well, I guess they had Carson
Really?
and they were feeling their
Okay.
oats and they thought they could throw the
That's
ball
nothing.
around. Last 5 games, Washington is up to 35 attempts a game. That's a difference
my
of
God.
16 rushes.
Wow.
And
I
they're,
didn't know that.
They're
Holy
averaging
smokes.
132 rushing yards per game, 4.3 yards per rush. So even though the individual numbers don't look great, last 5 games, 4.3 per rush is actually pretty
it's
good.
Rodgers' 24-yard run, which you should see it. It was so beautifully set up.
Right.
They had the defense going this way. He went that way. Curtis Samuel. But they're not getting the screen game going because without McKissick, although Gibson's a guy to watch tonight because he's got a bunch of touchdowns this season.
Yeah.
And he did score in the first game against Eagles, did he not? I think he did it on a pass.
Yeah, it might have been. It was late in the game, I remember. I'll ask you guys, from a strategical standpoint, Washington's trying to run the ball. I'm sure they watched tape of what the Houston Texans did.
Hell yeah.
Do you see the Commanders playing a little copycat, 2 tight ends, little gap, little power? Is that how you go at the Eagles if you're Washington?
Yeah, you find weaknesses. Every team finds weaknesses. Remember, these plays are just a personnel change. They have double tight ends. They have, 3 tight ends. They have it all. So, yes, will they try to mimic and make sure that the Eagles are sound? It may be something that they try a few times to see if they can make some yards on it. And if they can't, they'll go back to what they're doing. But, yes, their run is definitely up. Do I think that it will be enough? I don't necessarily know, but they rushed the ball pretty well last game, 4.6 yards a carry. So
Yeah.
I think that they'll try some things, but again, I don't think it'll be enough.
Without Maddox, wouldn't you go after Josiah Scott a little bit?
Well,
In
yes.
the run game or pass
And
game?
no pass game.
No,
sorry.
no. So Johan Dotson at number 3 is always going to be a matchup, right? So he's going to be a winnable matchup for your third receiver. Is Tyler Heineke talented enough to be able to exploit that? And that's the question that you got to have. If the offensive coordinator, does he want to play through him, right? Does he want to play through him? So that would be whoever the nickel is for us. Whoever
Scott, right.
whoever Dotson's playing against around National Football League is
Right.
going to have the advantage.
Now,
Can they do that and keep Terry McLaurin happy? Can they do that and keep Curtis Samuel happy? Can they do that? I don't necessarily know. Would I do it? Yes. But I'm third receiver too. I want to do that all the time. Did it
But I would
ever
also
happen?
ask you, even as a running team, do you run when the Eagles are in nickel and you have a guy like Josiah Scott in there who's not a very big guy, has speed but not known for being a tackler? Avante Maddox was actually a good tackler. Do you try to funnel runs in his direction and try to get up into that vicinity?
I don't necessarily, any offensive line scheme is ever saying, okay, let's run the ball to the nickel.
Yeah, no.
Wait a minute.
Like,
No, but I do
that's
remember
all
Sean
outside
Payton.
zone.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah,
You guys
yeah.
remember Sean Payton once called out Sidney Jones after an Eagles game and said we were running at him, and he was playing nickel at the time because they felt he would not tackle anybody.
Oh, what?
yeah,
He said to Peter
it's-
King,
it's- What I'm saying is, you can run it in that direction, but there's no scheme that's going to be designed to get up to him. Like,
Gotcha.
you get what I mean?
Because that's all outside zone, toss cracks,
Sure,
toss
sure.
plays. So
Yeah, and what they're saying is that even though he's free, he's not going to make the
Right.
tackle. That's a
Yeah.
different subject. But
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know if we have a Sean Payton as coach. We're talking about one of the best coaches in the last
Very
decade.
aggressive.
Sure. And I think
You
you're
know?
right. It's more about what side they felt that they could run
and
to.
I think
than-
our defensive ends are, they will, like when you're talking about BG and them, like they set the edge. Now that's one thing that they do. They do set the edge on the front side of the runs. They do get a little undisciplined on the back side.
Right.
That's why you get opened up with some of those cutback plays. But as far as setting the edge, now that's one of the things that they do really well.
All right. Do you intentionally call him Johan Dotson because he's a Penn Stater and you like to mess up his name?
Yes.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. He goes by Jahan up at State College, okay?
His name is-
You want to turn him into Johan? You do that in your
He's
Number
Michigan
one in
term.
your heart.
His name is Johan.
Johan. He's Johan to Jason and Jahan to everybody else. All right. I love it.
I saw your face when I did it. I kept going.
You know if you play for Michigan, you know his name like. All right. Well, even though, as we talked about, even though the Eagles have been a little loose in the run defense, they are the NFL's most takeaway happy team, and by far. In fact, let the record show, when I said 2 weeks ago that being plus 12 in the turnover ratio was unsustainable, I was correct, because they're better than that
They're
now.
better than that.
They're up to plus 15. 2 more last week against the Texans. We had a C.J. Gardner-Johnson interception. So
Great interception, by the way.
that
I
was
know
really
I talk
incredible.
about his tackling, but he's got 2 picks that were pretty amazing.
What he gives up, he taketh away.
Yeah.
So, right.
Getting the ball back is better than missing the tackle, though.
There you
know,
go. There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
James Bradbury also had another interception. That gives them 18 total takeaways in the NFL. That leads the NFL, and they've had 13 in their last 5 games. It's
Yeah.
almost
You average
incredible.
2 a game.
It's almost 3 a game, really.
Yeah,
Yeah, 13 in the last 5.
But now, here's the question. Is it more a result of the competition because they've had a good schedule? Or are these guys that good?
Well,
I'll say this, is that it's a great thing to have secondary players that have a bunch of versatility and a lot of years playing the game. There's a lot of these interceptions are just second nature things that are happening. Yes, they're skiing, but there's also KYP, knowing the personnel that you're going against. Like the ones on Gallup a couple weeks ago versus the Cowboys. Knowing that this guy's coming off an injury, knowing I have a safety over top, I can be as aggressive as I want to be.
Right.
And usually a younger player worried about giving up, the big play or whatever it is. Our guys play situations extremely well, and that goes to just being veterans and seeing a lot of football.
so that speaks to Trey, because there's 2 schools of thought with takeaways a lot. Some coaches say they just come in bunches. You can practice all you want. You can do this. You can do that. Some say, no, there's talent involved. And Jason is speaking to the awareness, the understanding, the veteran savvy that this defense has, that these takeaways aren't just random, that there's a trend here that's for a reason. Do you see that too?
Absolutely. I mean, when you have a veteran group out there that's all of this stuff is happening before the game even happens. I mean, these guys, when you look at a veteran group like this, the preparation that's going in throughout the week, that understanding who you're going against, knowing your personnel, knowing what you need to go out there to do, to put yourself in position to make plays, that's what you have within that locker room, and that's why I continue to stand on undefeated.
And the reason I say that too, and I agree with Trey, is because just look at the number of balls we're getting our hands on. And that sounded crazy, but PBUs, right, they ain't sound great.
Yeah.
But the number of pass deflections that we're getting each and every game, and it's coming from every group, right? Especially the linebackers in the secondary, and that's usually saying that turnovers are going to happen.
Right.
Usually you have games where guys don't even get close to being near the ball.
Are PBUs a taught thing, or is it sort of innate as a defensive back? You either have it or you don't.
Well, it's going to be, some things are innate and some things are just film study, right? Guys that can eliminate stuff when they come up to the line of scrimmage, and that's what the best secondary defenders are. The ones that you have trouble with playing is the ones that's, he didn't cut split, deep cross. Like, that's the guy that knows those things, and they're usually going to touch the ball at some point because they are eliminating plays in their mind based on your formations.
Right. And let's also go back to that discussion of how this defense is compared to last year from a talent standpoint. You look at the back end, the back 6. You got 4 new starters. Marcus Epps, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Kaiser White, James Bradbury. Okay, those guys are here for a reason, and they're starting for a reason, and they were supposed to be and have proven to be upgrades over guys like Eric Wilson, Anthony Harris, Steven Nelson. Steven Nelson got a decent sack last week on a blitz.
Yeah.
That's probably what he was better at than actually covering deep. So, I mean, I think that speaks
Probably,
to
yes.
I think that speaks to the fact that these upgrades were not just meant to give this defense more talent, but they've become a takeaway defense because of the level and caliber of player that is now manning those spots, no? I mean, CJ's got 5 interceptions, 4 of them in 4 straight games, okay? I know he didn't have that many picks in New Orleans, but he was known as a scrappy kind of player who can get his hands on the football, right?
No, I think you're right when it comes to that. I think that we always talked about the secondary and the linebackers. Cosell White's been a revelation, right? And TJ Edwards has taken this play up to possibly Pro Bowl level, and that's just the honest to goodness truth. And I was definitely, skeptical of moving a nickel corner to safety, even though he did it in college, but it's panned out for the most part besides tackling. They're saying we're going to get better as the season goes on in tackling, but he's getting deflections, and the guys are playing as a unit. Marcus Epps as well. Last year we said many times that Marcus Epps should be in the starting lineup. They finally put him in the starting lineup, and he solidified that. So when you put that with two veteran corners, I think their confidence is just off the charts right now. I think that they believe and know in their mind they're the best secondary in the league.
What do you think went on with CJ when they traded for him? He had never played that position, as you mentioned. His coach, Denard Wilson, defensive backs coach, played the position in the NFL, and his defensive coordinator is a D-backs coach, Jonathan Gannon. Do you think that they had to work like overtime, extra? Like, give me an example. When you trade for a guy a week before the season and you start him in a position he hasn't played for, how much work goes behind the scenes just to get him acclimated to be ready to play?
It's a lot of work. There's going to be a lot of work. There's going to be a lot of film study. There's going to be a lot of extra time on the field that you're going to try to get in, but a player has to be willing to do that. And it showed that he has.
Right.
With CJ, it's different from coming in on offense. On offense, there's a Rolodex of plays, especially at receiver. There's nuances and stuff like that could change. But for defense, there's always a base packages of defenses, and now you're just plugging and playing with names, right? Because he's done all of these things before. Remember, it wasn't just that he hadn't played safety in the league. He did play safety in college, so he does have some recognition of it. Right. And then there are sub packages in New Orleans where he would have to go to safety. Sure. So it's just about like learning the play calls for him. Sure. It wasn't as hard as a receiver or offensive lineman or someone like that coming into a new system. It wasn't that hard. Okay. So let's not give defensive backs too much credit.
Okay. I'll give the coaching the credit. We'll give Denard Wilson and Jonathan Gannon some credit for that. I mentioned that CJ has 5 interceptions entering this week. 8 NFL teams did not enter this week with 5 interceptions. Wow. So that's a pretty impressive stat right there. Adam, the crazy thing is, and you guys have played here, so you guys know about it, but once you get saddled with an image, it's really hard to get it off. So as good as the Eagles have been defensively all around, takeaways, Jonathan Gannon still gets killed around here.
Let me tell you something.
He gets killed.
Born and raised in this area. This love affair with Buddy Ryan, because the old schoolers want an aggressive defense. They want to blitz.
Right.
This defense, it's not predicated on it. They selectively blitz every once in a while. They're up to about 25% blitz percentage. They're right in the middle. But it's disguised late movement on the back end. This is what they wanted to do last year, but they couldn't because of Nelson.
Right.
They just didn't have the depth at corner. Now they can do it. Gannon is confident in doing it. And how could you argue with it? See, what it is the people who don't like Gannon, no matter what he does, they're waiting for the other shoe to drop. When he has a bad game, it's going to happen.
Right.
It could be against Dallas because Dak's back. And let's say they don't play well. See, I told you, he stinks. It's the same people who don't like Hurts. At some point, give it up to the guy. What else do you want the guy to do? Oh, his schedule's too easy. Oh, no one's pressuring him. Folks, do you see what he was doing last year at this time to what he's doing now? Give it up.
Definitely gotten better.
Give it up. Significantly better. But both guys have. I just think in this town sometimes people won't give it up. No matter what the people do, if you don't like the guy, they just won't accept it.
Right.
They try to find some excuse why the guy can't play well or call a game well. That's just the way it is. It's funny you bring this up because there's certain people, I hear it on talk radio, they're playing well now, but later in the season he won't do it.
Right.
Well, he won't blitz when he should blitz.
Right.
What do you want the guy to do? If you blitz more, you're exposing the back end. They played, and by the execution of this defense is phenomenal.
Yeah.
They don't make mental errors anymore.
The favorite criticism I was reading last Thursday night, and my Twitter started blowing up. Remember, Philip Dorsett makes that unbelievable catch.
Yeah.
And then I think the rookie tight end, whose name I can't pronounce, the Tegan Quadrilano, catches a touchdown.
What, Quentin Tarantino?
Quentin Tarantino. And then my Twitter is blowing up. Jonathan Gannon makes no adjustments.
There it is.
Why isn't he making adjustments? And I'm like, It's the first quarter. Do you make
By the way,
adjustments
it was a
on the
cover-
first?
by the way, it was
It's
a
the first
coverage bust.
drive.
Uncle said it was a coverage bust. I mean, it's
that was
unbelievable,
the
man.
cover. Talking about with the Bradbury.
Yeah.
That was just Bradbury guessing. That was it. He was in position. It was good defense.
Yeah.
Like as far as the coverage is called.
Right.
He just guessed wrong on that play.
It's all right. It's all right. The Eagles have been good. They're taking the ball away. They're doing what they got to
18
do.
times, folks. What?
It's good. Taylor Heineke. He starts tonight. He's familiar with this defense. He played against them last year. This will be, I think, his second time against them. He's sort of this kind of like, I don't know, I call him a gnat. Like he gets out of plays. Like there's nothing great about him. And yet, every time he comes in, he seems to move the offense a little better and hard to bring down. He's got an interception in each of his 3 starts. But in general, he's played well. Jay, what do you see when you see Taylor Heineke?
It's a guy that plays frantic to me. I think that you want Taylor Heineke to make the special play because he's going to throw you the ball at times as well. So if we play sound defense and we get consistent pressure on him, yes, he's going to beat you with his legs a few plays. He's going to make a spectacular play like that, but you can't sustain games that way.
Right.
So I believe that he's going to make a mistake. He's nothing to write home about. But I do believe that the team and the offense plays better when he's in there in comparison to Carson Wentz. And I think that they believe in him more. But again, he's frantic. He brings his eyes down. He wants to make plays with his legs. He still holds the ball a little bit longer than he should. All things that are recipes for a disaster, and you get like mesmerized because that was a great play made, but he's going to put 3 or 4 in harm's way, and hopefully we can capitalize on it.
To your point, if you guys remember the last year, the game he started, Eagles got up. He started to bring them back. The last play of the game, he had the tight end open in the end zone, but the ball got picked off. If you guys remember, he underthrew him, and the game was over. But he was he's that guy who you thought you had him down, and all of a sudden you look up and he's got the ball in his hands with a chance to beat you late in the game. I don't know. Is he a little Jeff Garcia like? Do you think?
Is.
The way he gets out of the
He's
pocket.
not that good, but
not that good.
Don't be
He's an
disrespecting
athlete,
Jeff
though.
like that.
Oh, come on. Heineke's all right.
He's fanatic, though, as you
Jeff
said.
made Pro Bowls and all
did.
types of stuff, man.
Jeff was good. But to your point, you guys always
And Jeff
believed
got the
in
ball
Jeff.
out too.
Yeah, he
Boy,
got the
Jeff
ball
got
out
the
of it.
offensive line. Love Jeff. Jeff got
he
the
would drive
ball out.
Marty crazy. He would run around. He'd try to make a play. He'd be Superman. But no, with Heineke, in a straight line, he runs like a 4.55, 4.6.
Right.
He's a scrambler. You know, he's sort of a playmaker, but
Yeah, fluty
more
tree.
like that. Yeah. But he's a small guy. In fact, sometimes he can't see over the line.
Right.
You're going to see that.
Yeah.
So there's some craziness to that.
All right, well, we're going to talk a little bit about Taylor Heineke's weapons in a second. First, we want to take a quick break to hear from our friends at Sky Motor Cars and the voice of the Eagles. That's Mr. Merrill Reese.
Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter makes sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, big thanks to our friends at Sky Motor Cars. If you hop out there in Westchester, PA to see them, make sure you tell them Adam and Jeff sent you. You'll get a great deal, or you can visit them at SkyMotorCars.com. All right, last time we saw this matchup earlier in the year, Carson Wentz was the quarterback. Washington was sort of struggling to find its passing game. It seemed like Curtis Samuel was sort of the guy that they were going to most to either cause mismatches, so forth or so on. But Terry McLaurin has 242 yards over his last 3 games. He's averaging over 15 yards per catch in that span. Jason, who do you see as a bigger threat tonight, especially now with Maddox out? Are you still concerned about Terry McLaurin, or does Dotson, maybe tight end Logan Thomas, or even Curtis Samuel to you stick out as someone that
Curtis
tough matchup?
Curtis Samuel to me is the quintessential grease guy, the guy that you get the ball to on screens, but isn't an excellent route runner or do much from a receiver tactical standpoint. I think Johan Dotson, and I think that
I was going to say, so the Ohio State guy is a grease guy. He can't run routes. You can't get the Penn State guy's name right. Is there a Michigan receiver we could just call on about?
Jahan Dotson is definitely a route runner and has some production going, and I think Terry McLaurin. So I think those two guys you're going to try to play the game through. Terry McLaurin is always their number one. They paid him for it, so they're going to try to get him the ball. Right. And I think that matchup nightmare for our team is Jahan Dotson.
Jahan Dotson would be the nightmare. That would make sense. I mean, he had, what did you say, 4 touchdowns in his first 3 games.
He's a technician. Well, he's just a technician. That's what he is. He's a technician.
I talked to Scott Turner about him at training camp. He said he's never coached a rookie like this. When he makes a mistake, it's almost shocking because he's that smart and he's that just trained. He's explosive. Now, he's their Z. McLaurin's their X. Cosell said that. He told me that they're actually moving him around now. McLaurin, because he typically likes to only line up on one side. Now you add Logan Thomas for the first time all year is not on the injury report. Remember, this guy is a converted quarterback and a big target at 6'7". Before he tore his ACL, he looked like he's going to be one of the better young tight ends in the league. So if they can protect, which has been a problem, there's no doubt, they've got all sorts of problems with their offensive line. If they can protect, they can move the football in the air.
Can they protect Trey Thomas?
On a number one passing defense.
Yeah,
I know. I hear
we saw the 9-sack game. We're all well aware of how difficult that was. But does Washington now running the ball and getting the ball out quicker give them a better chance to kind of move the ball tonight?
I mean, running the ball is 2 different things. But when you're talking about protection, I think our secondary is sticky enough to hold these receivers to make Heineke hold the ball a little bit. And without the way our guys are rushing right now, no.
Yeah.
When you have all of these injuries, especially within your interior, I mean, the way Hargrave is playing right now, Fletcher Cox is playing with a high energy right now in the middle, I think that, they cannot hold up against this defensive front.
Question on contracts. We were talking about this on our show about Hargrave, because all of a sudden he's been unbelievable.
Oh,
yeah. Did you guys ever play, is there something as a player when you know in your contract year, is there some kind of edge you get? Is there something in your mind like, oh man, I really got to step this up?
You know what, for me, I never had that situation because I got signed early.
Oh, Banner and
that group I got signed early, so I don't know the thrill of just saying, all right, I had this 1 year that I got to go out there and give it all. But there is something to that when you're saying, all right, you know what, you have to go out there and perform. You know that you want to go out here and get this big payment. But, I think that Hargrave is just doing what he's doing. I mean, especially when you have a secondary that's playing the way they're playing and Hargrave is healthy, he's getting out there and getting after it.
Yeah, I just think that he's healthy. Yeah, so, and then you add, as much as we've added on the defensive line and Reddick and you got, Quinn now, you have a bunch of guys. And then you're competing for reps with Jordan Davis and Fletch, right? So you want to be one of the guys that are on the field all the time, right? And sub packages and all these things. So all those things are extra motivation in order to play well.
All right, got to X out that part of the script on Javon Hargrave in the second hour of the show. No, I'm just kidding. We will talk about that because I think that you talked about health, and I wanted to ask a little bit about Javon Hargrave and what it's like to play with the injury he was dealing with. But first, we're going to take a split-second break to hear from our friends at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook.
Game night for me is every night. At the place where I meet up with the guys, grab a cold one, and watch the big game on the big screen. So whether it's the money line, the pass line, or a parlay, I'm in it to win. This is my city, and this is my place.
I'd like to thank our friends here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook. It's a great place to watch a game. You got people filing in left and right as they get ready for this Monday night showdown between the Eagles and Commanders. Remember, we're right here at Jack's Bar and Grill where there's great food and drink specials. We got $16 easy peel shrimp, $15 bottomless chips and salsa, $2 Miller Lights, $12 pretzel bites, and of course the home field advantage spin to win contest for bettors who place a qualifying game day bet in the Bet Rivers Sportsbook can enter the spin to win contest, which is held every Eagles home game. You place at least a $50 bet on pro football. Maximum number of entries per wager is 3. 8 winners are pulled via random drawing to spin the wheel. Prizes include free play, cash, 2 tickets to an Eagles home game, and if the Eagles win, 2 more winners get selected. That is a heck of a deal right there. They got the Choose the Champs weekly challenge for Rush Rewards members. It's all that here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook, where Philly loves A winner?
By the way.
Yes, sir.
Those pretzel bites are phenomenal. You and I had them a couple weeks
they're
ago.
awesome.
Oh my gosh. Wow, they're good.
Speaking of phenomenal, I don't know if you guys have seen that the Eagles are now double-digit favorites in this game against Washington for the 3rd straight week. Once again, I went back. I did a little research. I went on ProFootballReference.com.
Come on, man. Don't come with that negative energy.
No,
man.
this is positive energy.
Okay, good. All right.
Never has an Eagles team, since going back to 1960, has been a double-digit favorite 3 straight games. That's incredible. That's dominance.
Yeah.
That's people talking about the Eagles right there.
There you go. Let's go, baby.
And then they play the Colts, even though it's on the road. I think they're an early.
Oh, that's
10
going to be 4 straight.
I think it's actually 10.5 is the early line.
There you go.
Yeah. It's just Saturday.
That's right. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Straight from high school to head coaching for the
Yeah, he's the LeBron
And they
James
won.
of coaches.
And he won.
You can only play the Raiders every week.
And he won.
What are you thinking if you're Josh McDaniels today?
But they ran the ball.
But he
They
won.
had- Which they
He
haven't.
went
ran.
straight from high school to the NFL as a head coach.
and
He
won.
ain't got to do nothing.
Come on, man.
I love Jason like, yeah, so what?
I'm not. I respect Jeff Saturday and all that he's done for the
Great
game.
dude, by the way.
Great person,
Phenomenal
great player.
I think that's the
Will he
common
do well?
sentiment, yeah.
I hope that he does well.
Right.
But just
Still crazy.
realistically,
Yeah, as a head
like
coach, you really don't.
as a head coach, like they're the offensive coordinator, defense coordinator, and everybody in the offense is basically giving him a playbook, telling them what we're doing.
Right.
He's not doing much but galvanizing the team and running meetings.
CEO.
Yeah, he's the CEO, but he put Matt Ryan back in the.
That was smart.
Yeah.
How
well,
many
you
of his
should.
players' names do you think he knew after the win? Like when he goes to the locker room, how many? And he looks at the whole lot. How many of the guys do you
Or
think
his
he actually
coaches.
knew their names?
Yeah,
Or
always coaches. Yeah, exactly.
Mark's
yeah.
Frazier. Who?
Hey,
This guy was an offensive quality control coach.
exactly.
WOC.
By the way, Eagles favored by 11 last night. Last time I checked the Bet Rivers app, and an over/under total of 44. But I just want to go back to this. Even in 2017, the great 2017 Super Bowl team, they were only double-digit favors 3 times the whole year. This is now 3 straight weeks. That's unprecedented.
It had to be the Niner game, the Chicago game, the Denver game.
I didn't check which 3 weeks.
They were so bad that some of those teams were bad. I know that it was Josh McDaniels' first year.
Right.
I know Kyle Shannon's first year.
What's the combined records of those teams that we're facing? And I think that will answer the
Do
question.
you feel this negative energy now?
No, it
I'm
ain't
trying to get
negative.
that's
It's
where
just the
negative
truth.
energy comes in.
It's just the truth. It's the combined record of those
Right,
teams.
it's the
yeah.
truth, man.
All right, I guess so. We'll let you get away with that. All right, make sure when you do place your bets, you're doing it here at Bet Rivers Casino and Sportsbook or on the Bet Rivers app. So this was supposed to be the Carson Wentz returns to Philly game. I imagine that's why it was on Monday Night Football. Things don't always work out. Are any of you guys at all kind of like, I don't want to say bummed, but would you have liked to have seen?
I don't care.
No,
I
you
mean,
don't
you know
care?
what? Carson just can't catch a break, can he?
He gets a lot of breaks. It's just on his body.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's always a backup quarterback that's taking his shine.
Yeah.
And it's just been a rough time.
A rough
for him.
time.
I mean, if they win tonight, Adam, and they win 4 out of 5, do they have to
get
kind
paid
of
good.
consider staying with Taylor
Yes.
Heineke?
Ron Rivera was asked about it. He said, look, he was actually not going to deal with it.
Right.
He could have easily said Wentz is the starter when he gets healthy. He didn't say that. He left it open, and you're right. Winning is what it's about. I know it's not pretty with Taylor Heineke, but I could tell you the coaches and particularly the players love that kid because his moxie and his energy that he brings. He's not the most talented kid, but if you keep winning with this kid and they keep playing good defense, he's probably going to keep the job.
Wow. Can you imagine? I just can't believe how many backups have been able to supplant Carson Wentz. It's quite a story there.
Yeah, listen, I always say this. Cream rises to the top all the time. So you can be lauded and you can be put in a position, but only your talent is going to be able to keep in that position, and the best player is going to play.
Don't turn it over, man.
There you go.
And that's just true. He
That
turns
is
it
true.
over too much.
That's the truth. All right, we are going to get into the other part of the game we haven't talked about yet, and it's Trey Thomas's favorite discussion.
Trench.
We got to talk about the trenches.
Yeah.
We got to get some trench talk. It's the most important part of the game, as we remember. Yeah, Jason, you could just take this off. You can go work on pronouncing Jahan Dotson's name correctly. No, well, last time we saw this game, obviously it was a total dominant effort by the Eagles in the trenches to the tune of 9 sacks. And also on offense, they ran all over. They did not run
No, they
very
passed,
well.
they could,
They
yeah.
passed all over Washington. They got 24 points all in the second quarter, which is kind of hard to believe. but that's the way it's been.
Can't explain it.
No, no. We've talked about the changes, though, with Washington. They're doing a little bit more of what the Eagles do, 5-man fronts. They are down 2 linebackers, but the Commanders have allowed an average of 286 total yards per game over the last 3 games, which is down from the 432 yards they were averaging over the first 3 or 4 weeks. So, Trey, I know you want to get into Eagles protections, and we're going to get into that in a minute. I wanted to first ask you about the idea that Washington, and with that D-line they have, is now starting to get onto the whole 5-man front thing, and what kind of obstacles that presents for the Eagles' offensive line in the run game.
Well, when it comes to the run game, you're always going to get combination blocks. It's probably going to single out Kelsey a little bit more because you're going to have a nose guard that's over Kelsey. Kelsey's going to have to block man on. You'll get combination blocks over the right guard and right tackle. You'll get combination blocks over the left guard and left tackle, taking on that 4-eye. And you might add a tight end into the equation. But, it really doesn't. The only thing it really affects is when it gets to the passing game because not everybody has a block man on. But in the run game, if you do get combination blocks, that means now that, even if it'll put one of the tackles a block man on, it's not a big problem. It's just that, all right, you know what? You have to decide one of those linebackers you're not going to be able to get to, but then we run a lot of these zone read options anyway, so it opens up your plays, depending on how disciplined their backside linebackers are.
Sure, and the reason I bring that up is because even in the first game when they were playing a traditional 4-man front, they held the Eagles to, I believe, 74 yards rushing. It was an average of 2.4 yards per rush, which is their lowest since 2019. So the Eagles have basically run roughshod over a lot of good run defenses. But after they scored those 24 points, and I remember talking to you in the postgame show, Adam and I, we said, what happened there? And you said, well, Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne happened. And now they're even better. So will this be a big challenge?
Yeah, I think so. It's going to be another challenge. But we have to be able to stick with the run, get the run going, and stick with it. Just because we have such a dynamic receiving core that we just like, you know what? Hey, man, we're going to save Miles to when we really need to lean on him. But you can air it out. You got AJ, you got Slim Reaper. Because now, because over the past couple of days, past couple of weeks, Devontae hasn't had the same production or the targets. So he's going to get the ball.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then, you can't forget about Quez because, in the last couple games, against the last time against Washington, there were a couple times that they just missed him.
Yeah.
So that's coming.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to the run game, I think that just because how good our pass game has been, they don't need to lean on it.
Okay, all right, interesting, because usually that's their bread and butter, but you're right, that game, they were able to throw it all over the Washington Commanders defense. Jason, you were going to say something?
Well, they do a great job stopping the run. When you consider Dalvin Cook last year and last game and how well they run the ball, 2.5 yards a carry, Dalvin Cook, 47 yards total rushing, right? So when you consider that 22 for 56 and they, 2.5 yards,
right?
That's a great game for a defensive line. And Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen are as good as it gets when it comes to stopping the run.
They are.
Those are 2 strong gentlemen right there.
Sweat's a part of it. I think Sweat.
Yeah, Sweat's a part of it.
Strong.
Yeah. So those guys will have the advantage when it comes to running the football. And you don't like to say that, but we have the advantage in the secondary. And one of those defensive adjustments that are being made, they're playing a lot more cover 2 than they did in the first game.
Sure.
So they've as a cover 4, cover 3 team, they've been playing a lot more cover 2 and keeping guys back. So that's an adjustment that's been made as well.
And by the way, Hawkinson got them 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Jason brought up the cover 2.
Yeah.
In his first game, he had 9 for 9. 9 targets, 9 catches. He got them underneath in cover 2. It's funny you say that because that's exactly what they did.
And the thing is, guess who had a good game versus cover 2 last game?
Dallas Goedert.
Dallas Goedert had an amazing game versus. And the good thing about that is because last year at this point, our critique of Jalen Hurts was his inability to throw the ball over the middle.
Right.
And we looked at his heat chart, right? And how many times it was outside and those things.
Right.
Totally night and day now. He's able to hit the middle of the field, and that just goes.
Part of it. Yeah.
That goes to just show you like his growth and his development and him knowing the offense and being able to decipher what the defense is doing.
Sure.
So with that being said, you can't just play this cover 2 and think you're going to get away with it because Dallas Goedert have a big game.
All right, well, Dallas Goedert definitely had a big delivery last Thursday night, and we're about to get a nice delivery ourselves here from Jack's Bar and Grill. Want to thank the manager at Jack's Bar and Grill, and that is Joe. And who is our waitress tonight? It's Evelyn. Evelyn, do you have a prediction for tonight's game?
Go Eagles.
Say it to the cameras.
Go Eagles.
All right, thank you so much for our delivery here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hot decent water. Awesome.
Much needed water break.
Thank you.
Courtesy
Thank
of
you.
Jack's Bar and Grill.
Appreciate it.
Go Eagles.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Evelyn. Adam, I want to go back to this change of philosophy for Washington. About when did they do this and why?
It was pretty early in the season. It's William Jackson. I was so shocked that Ron Rivera, most head coaches won't tell the truth when they trade a player.
Right.
I mean, he gave it out. I was kind of like, wow. He just said basically they made a mistake in their assessment that they thought Jackson, if they moved to an all-zone team, mostly zone, not all zone, but mostly zone, that he could handle it. He can't. Jackson's not comfortable in it. He's a long man press corner, and it didn't work. And now the Steelers have gone away from playing a lot of zone to a lot of man. So that's why the Steelers traded for him. And what happened? William Jackson goes on IR.
Yeah, how about
on
that?
IR with a back problem that he's had. But
That's crazy.
so they're playing mirror match coverage, which the Eagles do, and it works for them. And they're not having the coverage bust because you gave out the yards that they were giving up. Now it's under 300 yards because they're not giving up the big plays. Not many big plays anymore.
Right. Obviously, due to the cover two that they've been playing a lot too.
But I'm interested to see what they do tonight because the Eagles are so loaded, and Trey brought it up with a pass target group. With A.J. Brown almost uncoverable, Devontae Smith with 7 for 80 in that first game. Well, actually, the Minnesota game before that, or whenever they played Minnesota, but the Washington game is when he went off.
Right.
Yeah.
He killed Washington on those deep throws.
And he killed him, and he killed Kendall Fuller.
okay.
Most of his targets were on Kendall Fuller. He did have one deep on the right sideline that was questionable catch on St.
If they had
Juice.
reviewed that, it would have been out of bounds,
that was the one on St. Juice. But I believe that the matchup again is Kendall Fuller. Kendall Fuller's a great zone coverer, great at zone. But I think once you start to get that stride that the Slim Reaper has, it's a little bit different thing.
How about Quez on him?
Anybody that,
Anybody
Quez,
on Quez.
yeah,
I know.
But Quez doesn't get the ball. He doesn't
needs
get
to.
targeted
Couple
as
shot
much.
plays.
No, they did right after the against the Steelers. They gave him a few targets, but St. Juice is actually doing pretty good in man coverage on contested balls down the field.
All right. Well, I actually thought he was playing well in that game. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith just grabbed balls that were almost impossible to get.
He's an interesting player. He's like almost 6'4". He's a big dude. And playing corner, it's pretty hard to get a contested catch on him, and they did it pretty consistent.
Jack Jarros, the defensive coordinator for Washington, said that. He goes, yeah, we gave up a lot of big plays. He goes, but the other times we didn't give up big plays, he actually played well. He said that the Eagles were so aggressive in that second quarter, I guess it was. They scored 24 points.
24 points.
It's hard when a team throws almost every down.
Yeah.
And you have guys who are almost uncoverable. When you decide you're going after a secondary with A.J. Brown, Smith, like never before. By the way, Goddard did score in that first game.
Yeah.
It was just one of these things. It was like blitzkrieg. They just couldn't stop them.
And they're down to like their fourth or fifth, their fourth or fifth corner when it comes to nickel. They got a guy named Danny Johnson playing nickel right now, right? And this guy was at the end of the depth chart at the beginning of the season. Everybody in front of him went down. So there's definitely some matchups to be had for our team.
Absolutely. We've got a question, 2 questions from our Patreon subscribers. Jason, you probably would want to handle this. They're really good questions, offensive philosophy standpoint, from both Elijah Smalls and Eddie Garcia. And it is really pertinent to tonight's game. Elijah wants to know what advantages that the pistol formation brings to the Eagles offense. They have been in the pistol frequently this year, going back to last year at times. And then on top of that, we have not seen Jalen Hurts running the ball as effectively or as frequently as he used to. And Eddie Garcia wanted to know, is there something to that you've seen?
Well, I'll talk about the pistol, and I think Trey can answer this question a lot better than I can.
Okay.
But the pistol, to me, is one of those formations that it's a hard giveaway between run and pass. And I think it's a formation that should be used a lot more, because you can't tell the depth of the running back as easy because he's stacked right behind the quarterback. And usually the 5 yards and the 7 yards is a pretty easy declaration when it comes to running pass from the running back split standpoint. So I think that's the biggest differentiator. I think it's hard to tell play action pass and or drop back pass when you're in a pistol formation. Right. And I think, Trey, if you want to add anything to that.
Well, when it comes to pistol formation, what makes pistol formation what a lot better for when it comes to the run game. You can run the ball either way. You always have hey, we can go left or we can go right. Most of the time, if the running back is to the right of the quarterback, we're running left. If vice versa the other way. So if he's right behind the quarterback, there's no tell.
Yeah.
So you can say, hey, well, you can come in there and say, hey, we got a play that's going to the right. You usually, this is an even number. Then, all right, hey, check, we're going to the left. So that's where the advantage is when it comes to pistol.
Yeah.
And then, especially when it comes to the run game.
And do you have any thoughts on why Jalen Hurts is not running as much as he used to, or even when he is, he's actually averaging only 3.5 yards per carry lately. He's not been running very prolifically.
I don't want him running. I want to make sure that we cut down the contact that he has. I don't need him taking all of these hits and taking on all. When you have running backs that can get out there and do what they need to do, you have a nice backfield that you don't need to rely on Jalen Hurts to run the ball. I need to cut down as many helmets that's getting on him as possible. I don't want Jalen out there running 20 times a game. I don't need that.
I'm pretty sure that this question probably has something to do with what we've seen with Justin Fields the last 2 weeks and him getting dirty in the open field, right?
Yeah.
And seeing how well that he's done with that and making a Chicago team that shouldn't be competitive at all, competitive, right? So you like to see those things from that team. From our team, you don't want to see that because I know the outcome of it. I played with running quarterbacks and guys that can get loose in the open field my entire life. And I know that eventually one of those hits will catch up to you. So Jalen Hurts has learned how to extend plays in order to throw the ball.
Sure.
And that's the thing. He's realizing now that I can be just as effective by checking the ball down. I can be just as effective by knowing what I need to do, getting the ball out of my hand rather than making a play. Usually, I'm not saying this is always, but usually when a quarterback is running for a lot of yards, they don't know what the hell they're looking at. And it's just the truth, right? They don't know what coverages they're looking at. They don't know where 3 and 4 is in the progression because they forgot. They're just new. They're learning it. When a guy's running the ball less, that just means that he has more command of the offense and he understands what the defense is trying to do to him. And I think it's a growth and progression
That's a really
thing.
good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I don't think anybody will argue with that. As far as wanting Jalen Hurts now, you've seen the progression. He knows what he's doing. He's reading coverages. He's doing.
If a team comes out and say, you know what, I'm going to run 22-man, or I'm going to run man, and I'm not going to put a guy on Jalen Hurts, of course he's going to run for a lot of yards because the defense is just dictating that. But that's not the case with Jalen. Our team doesn't get as much man as most teams does because Jalen Hurts is back there. So he's able to predicate what types of defenses are being, presented to us, which is causing him to be better.
Sure.
So yeah.
By the way, if I'm not mistaken, your former coach, Big Red, I think he's responsible for reintroducing pistol back into the NFL because when he got the Kansas City job and traded for Alex Smith, he hired Chris Alt, who had been the Nevada coach and coached Colin Kaepernick, and they ran a heavy pistol offense there.
They did, and in San Francisco, in Nevada, but in Nevada.
Right. So pretty interesting stuff there, Andy Reid, because I don't think he was running the pistol with you guys.
I love the point that Trey made, right? Being able to run the ball in both directions, and also too, like you can't tell the running back depth when the quarterback is right there.
Right.
And so and you got to keep them pretty much the same. So I think that it's just a guessing. It makes you guess from a defense's perspective.
But then when you go pistol, like running backs have to buy into that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of running backs don't like that pistol formation. You know what I'm saying?
It is true. They don't like pistol.
By the way, the Ravens use it with Gus Edwards.
That is
Gus
true.
Edwards, with Lamar Jackson. Gus Edwards, former undrafted free agent, he's made his money out of pistol. It's amazing.
Definitely. All right, you talked about protecting the quarterback, not wanting to take hits. Trey Thomas, I know that's very important to you as a former left tackle. Last game, and it's really not just last game, last 3 games, Jalen Hurts has been sacked 10 times. That's the same number of sacks from the first 5 games. So we saw Jordan Mailata struggle on the opening series of the second half. He gave up 2, when I say struggle, he gave up 2 sacks. Lane Johnson gave up some pressures. They obviously struggled a little bit with Jerry Hughes.
Gave up a sack too last week.
Yeah.
Kept talking about him. Jinxing my man Lane.
So, my bad. Well, I'm just telling the truth here. Here's what I want to understand. Nick Sirianni tried to take the blame for Trey. He said that the read for the plays, and he's talking about the Mailata sacks, did not match the protection scheme. Is that what did you see on those 2
Well,
sacks?
on the first play, I think it was a draw.
Okay.
It looked like it may have been a quarterback draw, so it looked like Jordan tried to just throw the guy by, and then boom, there you go, sack. You know, and I think that was one of the mistakes. But then the second one, you just got beat. You know, and then when Lane Johnson gave up the sack, he just got beat. You know, when you go back and you look at, you know, what's going on, to give up 22 sacks right now, it's kind of middle of the road where everybody is. You know, that's not. I think that this offensive line is better than that to give up that many sacks a game. I mean, right now you're averaging almost 3 sacks a game. You know, and that's, to me, when you go back and you look at this group, and everybody says, "Oh, hey, man, you know what? We have the best group in the NFL." Not when you're giving up 3 sacks a game, and that's just being real. And you know, some of the stuff is technique that can be fixed. Now, you know, are you going to do that? Because that's one of the things that you got to go back and you got to watch the film. You can't be lazy out there and try to lean on guys, especially when you have edge rushers that's going to give you that stab and go and get you leaning on them. And then now here you are giving up a sack to someone that you shouldn't be doing that. And, you know, and to me, when you look at a quarterback, at the end of the day, it's all about keeping Jalen Hurts healthy.
Right.
And every time that he gets hit, that's a chance that, you know, you don't want us to turn around and look at like how the Bills are.
Sure.
You know, once that quarterback gets hurt, you know, that you know, you only go as far as the quarterback takes you.
Right.
So I think that one of the things that we have to do is just make sure that we tighten up our protection.
Hey, Trey, I got a question for you. A few times it seemed like he was just late off the ball. Is that something with snap count because they're on the road and silent count, or like especially the second one, because by the time he looked around, Buddy was at his back leg.
Okay, so now this
right,
is
so
the thing.
He's on side.
You know,
So
this
keep
has
it real with
been
me.
a situation that has been going on for a while. Kelsey is very sporadic with his silent count.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like when we go to silent count, all right, you have to touch. The way they do it now, the right guard touches Kelsey, and then he starts his silent count. And it usually looks to the left, comes back to the middle, and then he snaps the ball. What you're taught as a tackle, I never want to see the ball snap. You never want to see the ball snap. So I'm taught to, like, all right, once his head goes, it stays in the rhythm. I know that he's turning, and then boom, I want to go. It's the timing of it. Kelsey is very sporadic when it comes to his silent count. Sometimes it's boom, boom. He looks left, he'll look left, snap the ball. He comes back to the middle, then snaps the ball. So sometimes the timing is off at times. And that what makes it hard for tackles. You know, it's very difficult.
Where you get this from? This
Yeah,
is great. This
and
is
it's very
great
hard.
This is the
stuff.
pistol
Like,
formation.
And this is something that, you know, that Kelsey has dealt with for a while. And even Jalen Hurts, there are times where he's just like, all right, you know what, is the ball coming? Boom, now the ball is on it.
He got hit in the head twice last week.
You know, so sometimes Kelsey, I know, and it's very hard.
You can't talk about Kelsey.
You cannot criticize Kelsey because everybody's like, oh my God, no, you can't talk about it. But when it comes to his silent count rhythm, sometimes it is off.
Okay.
And it makes it hard for tackles.
Okay.
And if you're late as a tackle, you may as well be sitting over there getting seeds and handing out Gatorade to guys, because we like to, if you ain't first, you last. And if you give up, if you're late off the ball, it's a sack.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening.
It's funny you brought that up, because what was the game before? Was it Pittsburgh before Houston? There were I saw this on Twitter. Someone put a video out. There were 2 times where it looked like Lane Johnson false started, and that game was in Pittsburgh, right? Or was it here?
It was here.
Oh, so they wouldn't have been using the silent count here.
Well, okay.
But there's still rhythm
I-
to
but
this.
They never called it, but he was clearly jumping before the ball was
No,
snapped.
they
I
don't
want
look at
that,
the
though.
tackle. They don't look at the ball. Receivers look at the ball.
Receivers look at the ball. We're listening
always
to the
out.
cadence.
Yeah, they're always
and
out
it's a
before us.
rhythm of the cadence that you're listening to. It's that blue 88 said Hut. So soon, I'm always I don't even want to. By the time I hear Hut, I want to go off set. I teach all linemen to go off set. Blue 88 set. As soon as you hear set, boom, you're gone. If that ball is late, that's on the center.
Sure.
So you always want your tackles to be. You want your tackles to be the first ones moving.
I think the logical follow-up is, if this has been a case with him, is it something you think that he does not work on, or he's cognizant of it, but it's not easily to?
No, it's a lot of Kelsey. Here's the thing, and this is in Kelsey's defense. Kelsey unlike most linemen of me being there, he's asked to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Kelsey a lot of time is building the formations, and he has the right to veto stuff, unlike I've ever seen, right? So he has the right to be able to put together a certain protection and veto the way that they're going to block it and all those things. So he's going through a lot, especially with the young quarterback, being able to get the mic correct and all those things, guys moving. So I think, does he have to do that at a high level? Yes, because he's a center, and every center is required to do that.
Right.
But I think that he's being asked to do a lot more than most centers
so
are.
there's like a totem pole of responsibilities here.
And he's
that one
he's
just
at the
hasn't gotten
highest
built
on the
yet.
team.
But his silent count has been sporadic for years.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
we've
And
seen
it's-
going back to 2 years ago,
Yeah.
Jalen was getting hit in the helmet with the snap.
Yeah, and there were even times where you could see Jalen like waiting for the ball, and like he's like, and the ball is late, or
They talked about it on the podcast.
Yeah, so there's a lot that's going on, but you cannot criticize Kelsey. Don't you criticize Kelsey, man? Hey, you know, hey, for everybody, I love Kelsey.
Hey, we
I
love
think he's
Jason
an
Kelsey.
amazing
This is
player.
education, though, man. We're
Yeah,
learning.
but you can't criticize it, man, because you know because everybody, oh man, he hasn't given up any sacks.
Right. I don't even find that to be a critique. I find that to just you're giving a scouting report on something. Everybody, the greatest players all have strengths and weaknesses. There's
Yeah.
no doubt about it, right?
Yeah, his silent count is sporadic, and that's something that, like, even when I was on the staff at that time, I would tell him like, hey man, you know, your silent count needs to be a rhythm. It has to stay in the rhythm because tackles time that, and it's all a timing. Like I would look. Like with Jamal, like soon as his hands started going, I'm gone. I never want to see the ball snap. As an offensive lineman, if you see, the only person that should be seeing the ball snap is the center.
Sure. So you could see how Jordan Mailata, who has not played this game very long, compared to some other offensive tackles, might have difficulty or be a little slower to adjust.
Yeah.
Especially, and Jay, you mentioned this, going up against a guy like Jerry Hughes. If you're already a little bit behind the 8 ball, he's been doing
And
this.
he can bend.
Yeah,
Jerry
like
Hughes
PG,
can
right?
bend. There was when he was so low to the ground on that second sack in order to get down there. I was like, oh my gosh, you got no shot. You got no shot.
And another thing when it comes to that, you can't be. All right.
Double underhand hooks.
You can't come with the double underhand hooks and try to treat everybody like it's a bull rush. You have to punch. And when you punch, then you punch the near point, and then now you pull your outside hand out, get strong with the inside hand. That allows you to get low. But if you come out there with those double underhand hooks, and then he gets low on you, your outside foot has to drop, which creates the lane for him to give up the sack.
Well,
All right.
That's an education right
Let me
there.
just say to Carl Stevenson, our Patreon subscriber, who asked, I was taking questions. He wanted to understand a little bit more about why there have been some breakdowns
think you
on
got
the
your
U.S.
money's
offensive line. I don't think anybody anybody around here could have given you a better description of the issue than what Trey Thomas just delivered there. So another reason, ITB Pregame Live, the #1 pregame show
Right.
in the Delaware Valley. If you do want to join our Patreon community, by the way, it's patreon.com/Inside the Birds. We do bonus exclusive podcasts for Patreon. We will have a former NFL head coach joining us on our next show. We'll be doing an Ask ITB live stream. Adam does a Discord chat every Wednesday night, 8:30. That Q&A like to make fun of on their podcast. And it's all good. So again, patreon.com/Inside the Birds. Getting back to what we were just talking about, Adam, this defensive line of Washington. I know Chase Young's not going to play tonight, but they can rush the passer. So it's got to be a concern when you've got Deron Payne, you got John Allen, and of course Montez Sweat is very lengthy.
Yeah, if you remember last year, there was such a lack of discipline. It was driving Jack Del Rio crazy because every week he was asking, what's the problem? Why are you guys so bad against the run? Where's the pass rush? You know, these 4 former first-round picks. Well, they're not all trying to get upfield all the time. They're playing the way that they're supposed to be playing. They're taught a certain way, and they're executing much better. They're not freelancing. The biggest issue for them was they were being called out for freelancing, as I understand it. They're just not making the mistakes that they were making last year. And it shows. You gave that stat. They're now giving up under 300 yards per game, which is hard to do in today's NFL with everybody passing the ball.
That is.
As the way that they do it. So that's why they're able to play games that are closer now. They're not getting blown out or getting smoked like they were earlier. They're just playing with a lot more discipline because they're not great in the secondary. They're good at safety. They're not great at corner. But when you play with a better discipline up front, it helps in the back end.
Now you have on the back end, you have like the perfect zone coverage like players. You do. with St. Juste and Kendall Fuller, like guys that are just used to being able to recognize route concepts, play physical at the line of scrimmage, like jam and reroute guys, and also look at the quarterback. And everyone talks about man coverage being the hardest thing to do. It is hard, but it definitely takes a guy that's disciplined and that studies film in order to be effective at zone. And they have two guys that are good at it.
Now, if we hear the name Rashad Wildgoose again tonight,
My favorite name in the NFL.
you know that the Eagles are killing him because they went after him. He's number 37.
I think that was his first appearance of the year, was it?
Was it? I don't know.
First start, because
okay.
he didn't have to start?
They claimed him off waivers from the Jets, and they went after him. And Jason talked about Danny Johnson, number 36, he was a former undrafted free agent. He's been with them for a while.
Right.
But Cam Curl, 31, now that he's back off his broken hand, he's a good player. He doesn't put the numbers up, but he's so disciplined and smart. And he's a guy that
can cover too.
He can, and on the back end, he's one of their leaders.
Yeah.
They're just playing with a lot of discipline. The Eagles are going to, whatever the Eagles get tonight, they're going to have to earn. They went after it and got it in the first game, but tonight they're really going to have to earn it more.
To your point on the two guys in the middle, Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen, two Alabama guys. By the way, tonight is like an Alabama family reunion, right? With Devontae Smith and Landon Dickerson and Jalen Hurts, and I think there's another lineman from Washington that's also from Alabama. It's just, and then you throw in A.J. Brown from Mississippi State. It's like an SEC convention.
Well, that's most games in the NFL.
Yeah, I guess it is most games in the NFL. Daron Payne and Allen have combined this year for 10 sacks, 21 tackles for a loss, 24 quarterback hits, and 6 pass breakups. The two DTs have 6 pass breakups.
They are tough and stout and strong, and they combine athleticism and strength up front. They get off.
Those are batted balls, and you're talking about guys that are great at two-gapping and being able to control a blocker. So on passing downs, if they're not going to be able to get there, their eyes are going to be there and get their hands up. And that's just something that guys that can control with power can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trey, what's the coaching point? You used to tell me about this. When defensive linemen are lunging with their hands in the air, trying to bat down passes, what's the offensive lineman supposed to do?
You turn them. You treat it like you're making a quick left turn.
Right.
You turn them, you flip them, and you try to put them on their head.
Right.
Yeah, I had a player like that, was it my rookie year against Dallas, one of my favorite plays. I think one of the DNs went to jump to bat down the ball. I turned his pass. I had my hands on him, turned his pass. His head and foot touched the ground at the same time, tore his hamstring off the bone.
I was going to say, how many times did he try that after? I guess 0, right?
Yes. It was absolutely amazing. Every time we get ready to play Dallas, I watch that highlight,
Gotcha.
It was awesome.
Hey, Lane Johnson, he recently spoke on a podcast about how he only sees himself playing about 2 more years. Now, he's 33. He has been through a lot physically and mentally.
Why do that?
But I used to think that if a guy starts talking like that and he has his foot out the door and he's pondering retirement, that's not a good thing. But I got to say, Jason Kelce has pondered retirement and talked about it for like 5 years now, and he keeps coming back and playing at a high level. But I don't know if you guys heard that or heard him say that, but
I've never heard that,
thoughts?
especially this early in the season, at this point in the season. Like, Kelce usually talks about it at the end
of the year,
when the season is over with. It seems like Kelce, if this is Kelce's last year, he's having an amazing farewell tour. Mm-hmm. He's having a good time. He's out there grittying. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's out there, he's doing the podcast
Batman,
with his brother, the Batman thing. He's having an amazing time. But I wouldn't be surprised if Lane
and Kelce were
shuts down after a couple of years. Just because it seems like when I watch Lane play, I don't see the same fire.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there are times when I see him block a guy and it's kind of like, all right, it's over with.
Right.
It's not that you're, one of the things that I've always found with Lane is that how the relationship that he and Brooks had. Mm-hmm. I thought that relationship was genuine, and it was something that they really fed off of each other. Mm-hmm. And once Brooks shut it down, I knew that Lane was going to struggle with that. And to me, it just seems like when you watch him play, it's not. I wouldn't be surprised that he would be saying something like that.
Right.
That doesn't surprise me hearing that right now.
Okay, interesting. Well, I'm curious for both of you guys. When did you know it was done for you guys? Like, it's hard to just say you're done, right? I mean,
I knew when I couldn't get open on certain people. I knew were bad. I was like, these dudes are bad, and I couldn't get open on them anymore. I was like, I'm done. Yeah, that was just it. And like, you start to get older, and you can't run down the field the same without like being tired or you don't have the energy, you know, so you
Was
just
it
don't
the
feel like it anymore.
Was it the Chargers or Jaguars? you finished with?
Chargers.
Okay.
Yeah, when I went to San Diego, I was like, look, man, all right, you know, I'm done. I'm not feeling this. And North Turner was like, hey, man, you know, I really need you to come out. You know, I had just bought a boat. You know,
I remember
I was
this
in
story. I
Jacksonville,
remember this
man,
story.
living in
Okay.
Queens Harbor,
Yeah.
which is a boating community. I had just bought a boat. I was, you know, I was on my way. I had this amazing idea with like maybe a couple days of boating experience of saying, you know what, babe, we're going to take this 42-foot Sea Ray Sundancer. We're going to leave from Jacksonville, Florida, and we're going to take this boat all the way to Philadelphia. I think we can do it. How bad could it be? I mean, if it goes bad, all we need to do is make a left turn. We'll hit land, I promise you. You know, but, you know, I never made it out of the Carolinas because, you know, because I didn't know what I was doing.
So was it more?
So I
Did you get
messed up my
rescued?
boat. Yeah, no, I messed up my boat.
I'm actually impressed you
One
made
of
it to
my
the
props fell
Carolinas.
off, and I had to drop my boat after this marina. And then North Turner called me and was like, "Look, man, I need you to come to San Diego." So I ended up going to San Diego.
Did you? Oh,
Yeah, so I ended up going to San
that I
Diego.
didn't
Left
know.
the boat in Carolina.
Yeah, I left the
with-
boat in Carolina. Yeah, and then after I retired from San Diego, after I was like, all right, I'm done, I went and got my boat and was going to take it back to Florida and ran aground again. You know, so that was it. The missus was like, all right, you need to sell the boat. That's it. No more boating for you. Yeah.
So,
but it was all a
summing it
3-hour
up-
tour. How bad could it be? I mean, it wasn't bad for Gilligan.
I was
but,
going
you
to
know,
say, right.
a lot of these young people don't know nothing about Gilligan. But
we
it's
know
okay.
about Gilligan. So it was a little bit more mental than like. Did you feel physically you could play though? You were just
No,
mentally
I was
done.
done.
Oh, no, you were
Yeah,
done?
no, I knew that. I'm like, all right, dude, that's it.
And here's the thing: when you get older, and it's time for you to be done playing, you start questioning everything.
Yeah.
Every concept why are we doing that? Like you
Yeah.
just start like
You become bitter.
when you were young, you'd be like, oh, coach, I got you.
Yeah.
Then you'd be like, man, let's get the young person to do that. Like you begin to become.
Well,
you
big
know,
stuff they were asking you to do, or just overall
yeah, no, they're
general?
asking me to
Oh,
do. I
okay,
become
okay.
a partner now. I feel like I'm a partner. I'm not a part of
I
this
got you.
here.
I got you.
Well,
Like
it didn't
we
help
have
that-
to we
didn't
have to
help that
agree
you had
upon
Chip
this.
trying to tell you what to do.
Let's bring this to the table.
Well, when you were with Chip, what, 1 year?
Yeah.
2013?
Yep.
And
Just
when you
he deliberately tried to get me out of here.
why? How so?
Just didn't understand the role of my play, right? Because he was used to guys that got a lot of yards after the catch, and he didn't understand that you need players like me for situations, right? So, 3rd down, 4th down, games on the
Dirty
line.
yards. Yeah.
When my guys are struggling with man coverage in order to get us back on track, right? Coach Reed understood of playing many years of football that you're going to need a guy like this. You may not need him 7 games, but you're going to need him in most games. So I need a guy like that on my team. Chip Kelly didn't understand that concept. Therefore, he threw the ball to Riley Cooper at the end of the game of that year
Right.
on 4th down when he could have came to me and we lost.
We knew
you
something was up.
Feather
Man.
in my cap.
We knew something was up when he was having you doing defensive back drills in
Yeah,
OTAs.
yeah.
So that's usually
Did
the
he
first
really?
time.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Oh yeah, that was famous.
I was DNC
I didn't remember that.
All right. Oh man, I just lost control of the show, but I'm happy to have done it.
Good stuff.
We're going to bring it back here. I want you to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They are enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So you can check them out at PHLSportsNation.com or on Twitter at PHLSportsNation. Continuing with our talk about the trenches, we had mentioned Javon Hargrave before. The man has 5 sacks in the last 2 games. He is starting to look like the Javon Hargrave we saw last year. Now, here's the weird thing. He talked about being healthy for the first time. And we know he was out almost all of training camp with a toe injury. He was actually on the injury report up until the first game of the year. But ever since the first game of the year till last week, he has not been on the injury report, but he sort of brought up how he's finally healthy. Trey, you're, as a fellow big man, I don't know if you ever had turf toe or a toe injury, but is that something tougher to navigate because of your size?
Well, I guess because all the pushing that you're doing,
Yeah.
everything is all off of your toes, and especially the type of rusher that he is. He's a power rusher. He's not like Fletcher Cox can give you that double hand swipe and turn it into something, but Hargrave is more of a bull rush type guy.
Right.
So I can see how the toe can be a problem. I had plantar fasciitis for a while,
Okay.
but I had to drive to New York every Tuesday and have my foot zapped with an ultrasound machine, but I never missed a game. And that's just because I was a tough guy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I think Hargrave, the way he plays, it's a power game, and he's a bull rusher. So I can see how that would be a problem. And one of the things that he's doing really well is he's not just sticking on the bull rush. He'll give you that bull, and then he's going to transition into something else, which I tell a lot of young defensive linemen, watch how he plays. Don't just offensive lineman is always taught a slow death is a good death. So if you give us a bull rush, we'll just sit there, hop,
Right.
the ball is gone.
Right.
But what Hargrave is doing really good is he gives you that bull, makes you sit down, then he transition, he comes over the top with some type of swing movement, which clears him to the quarterback.
Yeah.
So he's doing a really good job of that, which is creating problems for offensive linemen.
I mean, Jay, he looks like he's been shot out of a cannon the last 2
Yeah,
weeks.
he's been playing really well, and yes, the turf toe will hinder you, and it hinders anybody that is.
You ever have it?
Yeah, I've had it in the offseason.
Every time we
before.
talk about injury, you have it.
Yeah, I've had all types of stuff. Yeah, but when you play as long as we have, you've had some of everything. So, yeah, and it affects your big toe. And just think about it, like if you're just a fan thinking about it, if you move any laterally, anything that you do is going to be off your big toe. So if that thing is hurting and there's a separation of the bone in your big toe, it's going to be a tough injury to get back from. You're not going to feel explosive.
Right.
You may be able to walk around, but you can't do anything explosive. So I think that's definitely the reason that we saw lack of production. At least in the passing game.
Tell you
I think
what,
the run game, he's going to be the same
tonight
player.
against this interior of their offensive line, which is struggling, he might eat again tonight, man.
Yeah.
He should. When you have
change my player of the game.
Noel that's hurt, you got a backup center, and you got Trey Turner. Like you got guys that
he's
were
so
good,
past his prime,
were
right.
good like 7,
you were
8 years
playing.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, one of these days I'm going to make up a player and an injury. Like, Stephen Smith has leprosy, and I'm going to expect Jason to be like, oh, man, I missed 2 weeks with leprosy in 2009. I think your skin is everywhere, and you're out there playing. You really have had every injury that we've talked about. All right. Make sure, if you want to have a podcast or a pregame show like this, it's not just about the content, it's about the production.
Right.
Our production team, Public Square and Rebel Hill, they're back. The team of James and Zach are behind the controls, bringing Inside the Birds to you in high definition with great graphics, videos, and more. Contact Public Square Media and Rebel Hill Productions to produce your podcast, your webcast, your live show, anything else you can dream of. This team can bring it to life. We are nothing without our team of Zach and James. They do an excellent job. So I'm telling you, man, you want to start your own show, you got to have great content, but if you can't promote it, if you can't make it lively like this show, then you're behind the 8 ball. So make sure you contact our great team.
They do an awesome job.
They are
Just
fantastic.
Phenomenal.
All right, someone brought it up earlier. I think it was you, Jason. Devontae Smith. He has sort of been like the forgotten man now that, or maybe it was Trey. Devontae Smith has been the forgotten man in the Eagles offense the last few weeks because Dallas Goedert's been having big games. A.J. Brown's been consistent. We know that in week 3, Devontae Smith had that 169 yards, 8 catches, and a touchdown. But over the past few weeks, just 22.5 yards per game. That's like backup running back type of yards right there. 22.5 yards per game. 7 total targets the last 2 games. Will that change tonight?
I think it will change, and I think it's going to change by natural design. Now, I think that the Eagles did what was best for the team. They went into the bye week. They said, what are we good at? Let me figure out a way to get the guy that we paid a lot of money, who is the most explosive player on our team, A.J. Brown, the football. And if we can get him the football until someone stops it, let's make that our priority. Now, the Slim Reaper, Skinny Batman, whatever you want to call him, is a viable asset to any team, including ours. But I don't think that you have to force feed him. I think this is going to be the ebbs and flow of the season. There's going to come a time where A.J. Brown is being prohibited. It's going to be stopped. The defense coordinator is going to say, we're going to take him away. And then that's when he comes in and steps up. That can be this game tonight where they make it a point to take away A.J. Brown.
Right.
And sure, Devontae Smith will be ready. Or they can do what they did last time and say, let me force feed Devontae Smith outside of the offense, which I can see that occurring too. I just don't think that that's a sustainable model for Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has to be able to go through his reads, make guys 1 or 2, and that's it. Don't worry about who's getting the ball. Let's just let it happen organically.
So the guy they went after in that game, Rashad Wildgoose, he's a healthy inactive tonight, so it won't be him.
Yeah.
Now the Eagles inactives, only 5 of them. Ian Book, Josh Jobe because he's hurt, Trey Sermon pretty much every week, Josh Sills, and Sua Peta once again is inactive.
Wow, interesting.
yeah.
So 2 offensive linemen are inactive. That only leaves them with Andre Dillard, leaves them with Jack Driscoll, and Cam Jurgens as their backups.
That's good.
Yeah, I guess that's all right.
I mean, you're going into the game with 8 guys. I mean, that's it. You have a backup center,
Yep.
you have a guard, and you have a tackle.
Right.
And then Driscoll can play wherever. He can play guard and tackle.
And tackle.
Where
Where do you think Driscoll is best
left, too.
at? Where do you think Driscoll plays his best football?
I think right. Anything at right tackle, I think he plays his best ball at right tackle.
Yeah.
But he did a good job when he had to go in at left. I've been pleasantly surprised at Driscoll's play. He's been okay. When he's had to step in and hold it down, he's been a good backup to go in there and hold his own.
Yeah. I would say, well, this year he had to play right tackle, then left tackle, which he had never played before. Then he got moved around a lot.
Yeah.
It felt like he had maybe more struggles this year, but because he was being asked to do a lot more this year.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure, and you have to understand how practices are. I almost can guarantee you that he did not take any left side reps going into that game because because you know how our practices are. You don't have time, to get all of that extra work in, and then now all of a sudden you're thrown in and you're like, hey man, you got to go out there and play left tackle.
It's even shorter now.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, to say, hey, you got to go play left tackle, that is difficult when you've always been in a right-handed stance. But he held it on. He held his own.
Gotcha. All right. Well, you know what? We're going to talk about the sports stock market and our friends at Mojo right now. Now, if you haven't heard us talk about it, Mojo is the sports stock market where you invest in players. You invest in what you know. I always say I don't know anything about Fortune 500 companies, so I don't mess with the stock market, but I know about quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, and if I could turn my sports knowledge into a nice diverse portfolio, so can you and you and you and everybody else watching the show. Invest in what you know. The shares that you buy in players entitle you to a guaranteed payout based on career-ending stats. There's no off days because everybody's stock can raise or go up, down, even in the off season. You might get traded, you might have an injury, you might be out for a while. You can cash out anytime with Mojo. You build a portfolio, you buy and sell on your terms every play, every game, every season. And they got this cool multiplier tab where you can increase your chances of your shares by 5, 10, 20 if you hit the tab. So if a guy goes up $2 and you got a $5 multiplier, you went up $10. So that's what Mojo is all about. And of course, they're available in New Jersey on iOS. And just by downloading the app, you've got a chance to win up to $10,000 in free shares of player stock. Click the link in the description for a chance to win up to $10,000 in free shares. The description will be in the YouTube box here at the end of the show. You got to be 21 and physically located in New Jersey to trade on Mojo. Have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Now, the Eagles haven't played yet, so we're not going to go through Eagles game, but there were some guys this week where you're like, I may need to invest in him. What about this Titans receiver, Ahine Westbrook?
Nick Westbrook-Akina, yeah.
Akini, I'm sorry, Akini.
Yeah.
Akina.
He's a straight line guy. He's been more of a tall slot receiver.
119 yards,
I know.
2 touchdowns?
Well, first of all, the touchdown, nobody covered him.
Right.
Literally, he ran. He's probably looking around like, wait, is there's no one here?
Yeah.
It was crazy. I'll give you a guy that I really like, Donovan Peoples-Jones, who's a deep threat at your school. He's their shot play guy for Cleveland.
Way to pronounce the name correctly.
Yeah, DPJ. DPJ, man. I'm a big fan of his. Very underrated guy.
Okay.
Get on him now. When they throw it deep, it's usually to him. But, I gave that example. When injury, it shows you that someone else could get there. I'll give you one. Van Jefferson now, Sean Jefferson's son, who's the shot play guy. He's over his knee surgery. He scored yesterday in garbage time. But Cooper Kupp's going to be out a while probably. Why not go get him? His stock, no one's buying his stock now. I would. Get on it early because he's probably going to have to start.
All right.
So he'll get more pass targets now.
Yeah.
Van
Jefferson, get on it.
Jason, tell me about these. I'm going to give you 2 guys. I'm sure you saw yesterday the rookie Christian Watson exploded, 3 touchdowns for Green Bay.
Definitely a Christian Watson fan.
Or Kadarius Toney, who's up 11.29. He's starting to get integrated into that Chiefs offense.
I'm going to say Watson because Watson's going to get more targets, and they need a deep play guy.
Anyone who can make a play.
Anyone. Yeah, right. So they need someone. When you get into the Chiefs offense and how many players they have to get the ball, I don't think that anybody on their roster, besides Kelsey and Mahomes, are going to be sustainable players.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, those are two guys on the rise, and of course, maybe on the decline. Speaking of the Chiefs, it might be time to sell on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, he's now losing snaps
What
to
in
the
the
takeover.
world?
Yeah.
Wow. It's a first-round pick, by the
Little
way.
guy problems.
What's going on with him?
Hey,
Just too little?
Yeah, you can't protect with Coach Reed. You're not going to play.
Ooh, good point.
All right, good point. All right, again, Mojo, available in New Jersey on iOS just by downloading the app. You have a chance to win up to $10,000 in free shares of player stock. You can, again, click that link in the box. All right, now it's time for our Game Time Watches Player of the Game segment. Now, Game Time Watches is great. They make watches that are licensed by MLB, NHL, NFL. If you want to watch with a beautiful logo representing your favorite team, you go to GameTimeWatches.com. You can get yourself one. They got great specials. In fact, I think everybody should get one. You got to show off your team pride. You see Jason in his Eagles hat. He should probably have a Game Time watch as well.
Yeah.
Courtesy of GameTimeWatches.com. Jason, I will start with you. Who is your Game Time watch player to watch?
I'm going with the whole defensive line. Can I do that? No, I can't do
No.
that.
He used to do that in the pregame
we
show.
all agree.
Offensive line. Offensive
Yeah, all
line.
of us. So I'm going to pick Hassan Reddick, even though I want to go Hargrave, but I'm going to say Hassan Reddick.
Hassan Reddick.
No,
And
I
why
want to change
Hassan
mine
Reddick?
to Hargrave.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Why Reddick? Of
Well,
all the defensive linemen to pick from.
Yeah, I just think that he hadn't had a sack in a few games, and I think that it's his time. I think that you have a bunch of backup linemen, and also they've been using him more as a stunt guy in the middle of the defense, and I know some of the guards have been out for them, so I think that they can use that tonight.
And they've got problems at right tackle. So Cornelius Lucas, who's like 6'8", he took over for Cosby. Mm-hmm. I don't know what they're doing on their offensive line, man. They got all sorts of problems.
All right, well, that is a recurring theme for Washington against the Eagles. Trey, I'm sorry.
Okay, my bad. Yeah.
We heard from Jay.
I'm
Trey,
going with Jordan Mailata, man. You know, after giving up 2 sacks,
Okay.
I want to see how you bounce back.
Okay.
You know, you got popped in the mouth, you know, and now let's see how you bounce back. How do you come back after a game that, you know, you should have been able to hold your home? You know, let's see how you bounce back after giving up 2 sacks.
well, it's just interesting. We just talked about him, and now you're saying we talked about some of the breakdowns of protection, and now he's your player of the
Yeah, what are your corrections? You know, like Coach Stoutland, all right, look, you've had some time. You know, what are you going to do as a player to correct this? But I think that this is part of becoming that star left tackle that you should be, and this making corrections and critiquing yourself. So to me, it's Jordan.
Do you think he's on his way or he's not there yet? Where do you think he's at in his
I
career?
think he's on his way.
Okay.
Because I think once Jordan learns how to punch and use his length, no one will be able to touch him as a player. The problem is because he's so big, when you're 6'8", 360 pounds and a single-digit body fat,
Maybe 380.
yeah, probably 380. You know, you can play the ukulele. You know what I'm saying?
And
Like
sing.
nobody can deal with you. You know, like everybody, you expect everybody to bull rush you, but once you can sit there and you shoot your hands, man, I mean, he'll be the best tackle in the game.
All right.
Wow, that
big
I
prediction.
think
right
so.
there.
I mean, he can be that if he learns how to use his hands and play with length.
Do you think it's innate, though, because he didn't play growing up? He was a rugby player. Can he get to that point?
But you have to learn that.
still
That's something that
developing.
you have to learn. And I think that Coach Stoutland is that type of coach that he can make him that.
Okay.
But, you know, because it's been, his 4th or 5th year?
18 was
No,
drafted.
Chip Kelly brought him in, so
No,
it's gotta be.
Mailata.
Oh, Mailata. okay.
2018. He was 2018 draft. So
So
this
is
is what his
fifth.
third
This
year
is-
starting. Third year
Third year
starting.
started, so
Yeah.
probably 5th year as a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
4th, 5th year
Fifth
as a
year,
player.
fifth year.
So yeah, this is, you know, that's
Okay.
kind of progression. You've learned how to play the game. It's taking some time. But I think that once he learns how to play with length and keep that extension, man, nobody will be able to touch him.
Adam, who's your Game Time watch player to watch?
I'm talking myself into Hargrave, but I can't because we
Yeah,
have
you're
it.
going to upset our production
Yeah, yeah.
team if you do that.
I'm going to stick with Sweat because Sweaty had a great game in the first game. He actually played really well. He's another guy. They're so deep on the defensive line. What a story he's been, number 94. And I know with his new contract, he's got him some incentives here. So it's time for him to get going again. And I think Josh Sweat will do very well wherever he's lined up.
All right, so this is obviously a very line-heavy game time watch segment. You got a pass rusher, offensive lineman, a pass rusher. I'm going with Devontae Smith. The proof's in the pudding. He had a huge game against Washington. And he, like I said, he's been the absentee wide receiver the last few weeks. They got to get him the ball, or else you're going to start seeing some pacing going on the sideline.
Wild Goose is inactive, so I don't know. But okay.
Remember the last time the Eagles were undefeated, 7-0? They went to Pittsburgh, and Donovan and T.O., and they're losing all of a sudden. No negative energy.
No negative energy, kidding. Man. Keep it
no
positive.
Negative energy. But I do think Devontae Smith has a big game tonight, and he is my Game Time Watch player to watch. A reminder, Game Time Watches is offering a special promo code for 20% off using the code ITB20. You get 20% off at GameTimeWatch.com. The code applies not just for Eagles watches, not just for NFL watches, but anything not already discounted. You got a lot of styles to choose from for men, women, and kids. They got the men's varsity style watch. They got the shiny face with the big team color logo, metallic accents, metal case, black silicone strap. It's like the everyday style watch. So check out the Varsity Drip Art Edition also at GameTimeWatch.com. All right, as we mentioned, the Eagles are 11-point favorites on the Bet Rivers app, a total of 44. Let's pick the game. Jason, I start with you. Who's winning?
I got Eagles 30-17, I believe.
Eagles cover.
That would go over.
Eagles cover and go over.
Cover and over.
The weather, by the way, I've not seen this in months here. Calm, that means 0% of wind. Like no wind at all.
No wind.
No.
I
know at the Lake. I can't believe it. I know. I've not seen that before. It's just calm. I'm like, wow.
That goes in line with it was like 80 degrees 2 days ago, and we're in the middle of November.
Yeah.
So, Jason, what is the score of the game?
Trey.
It's okay, dude. It's all right.
Jake,
I'm not
It's
offended.
the JT
It's
thing,
okay.
man.
It's all right. I'm not offended.
Can you guys switch seats?
Not offended at all.
All right,
you know,
Trey.
but I'm going to go 35-14.
35-14.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
Oh,
blowing
my
out,
God.
man.
All right. Well, the Eagles will cover in that.
I'm feeling groovy.
All right. Awesome. Not only they cover, but that's an over on the 44 as well.
Let's do that.
Adam, tell me what you got.
Well, I got it under, and I got a push. Eagles 24, Commandos 13. In fact, I picked the Eagles every game, and I am undefeated.
You
I
are.
will continue that tonight.
Adam is 8-0. Now, this is not with the spread. Adam's 8-0. Jason's 8-0. Greg Cosell, who will be back next week, he's 7-1. He predicted the Eagles to win tonight.
I'm 9-0.
I'm
I'm 8-0. I'm 8-0.
You're
about to be 9-0.
In life, undefeated.
Because I call us undefeated.
That's right. Greg Cosell did pick the Eagles to win 31-10.
Oh, wow.
And I am picking the Eagles to win 21-12. They won't cover. It'll be the under, but they will win.
12.
21-12. That's
Field
four
goal
field
fest.
goals. 4 field goals. 4 field goals. 3
field
touchdowns.
goals.
Is that all right? That's a good effort by the defense.
It's a terrible game.
Are we going to kill Jonathan Gannon for that?
They hold him out
Yes,
of the
we
end
will.
zone.
Yes, we will.
You can. We probably will. All right. You can bet the game right here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook, or you can go to the Bet Rivers app. Want to thank Rivers Casino, thanks Sky Motor Cars, Game Time Watches, the teams at Rumble Hill and Public Square, our friends at Mojo. Make sure you check out our coverage on InsideTheBirds.com after the game, and then the Inside the Birds post-game show will start very directly
Around
after the end of the
11:30,
game.
yeah, around
It'll be
11:30.
me, it'll be him, it'll be Trey Thomas, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Yes,
Everybody
Trey,
enjoy
with
the
the
game.
Nice job, Nick. Dude, you're the best.